Penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Now, pay no attention to that intro. This isn't just your regular Rebel Force Radio. No. It is a live after show. Yeah, there's new Star Wars content on Disney+. We got to have our say. We can't just let new Disney+ Star Wars content show up without us sticking our nose into it, right? And I will say, if the good folks at Lucasfilm want to have a proper Tales of Rebel Force Radio after show intro, they really got to commit to the format here. They're jumping all around. Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. Give us something to work with, and then we can create an intro. Well, intros notwithstanding, it's great to be back with you all, especially live. We love doing that live here on YouTube. And looking back at the big drop on May the 4th, Tales of the Empire. We got to see, well, really what it is it's one woman's origin and another woman's destiny. So we're going to be breaking that all down. 6 episodes, quite a bit of content, actually, when you add up all the minutes. But most importantly, we want to hear from you. We're going to be following along in the live chat. We're going to be taking your phone calls. So, and maybe even telling a tale or two from our escapades in Bristol, CT, over the weekend. So anyway, so glad that you're checking in with us here. Rebel Force Radio and the Tales of the Empire after show. If you're new to the program, introductions may be in order. If so, my name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We're back in the saddle again for another after show. And happening much sooner than I think we even thought. Bad Batch wrapped up. Acolyte is still next month, and there will be after shows for Acolyte, whether you like it or not. And
believe me, everyone's mind is made up. We haven't aired a single episode, and everybody knows what they think about the Acolyte. Even I think I know what I think about the Acolyte.
Oh, good, yeah. Why even bother watching?
Right.
We're going to dive into Tales of the Empire for this particular after show. And we're going to break it all down and then open up the phone lines to hear what you guys think about this 6-part animated anthology.
Mm-hmm.
That, Jason, I would like to see a greater commitment to this series. And if they do that, I will create a show open appropriate for that series. But
otherwise, what are we to do? We don't know. We don't know what the next Tales of is going to be.
We don't know. I'm still hearing it's going to be Tales of the Jedi this year. They're going to drop another series of season, I guess, of Tales of the Jedi. I have a hard time calling them seasons. I just look at it as 6 parts of one thing, as opposed to, individual episodes of a certain season of a program.
Well, I got a question for you, though.
Yeah. 2 arcs.
Certainly, the Morgan Elsbeth episodes wouldn't have fit. But the Barriss Offee 3-parter would have definitely fit in a Tales of the Jedi Season 2.
Yes.
Right?
I guess it's all the perspective from which it's being told from. Because Barriss had left the Order and was imprisoned by the Empire. And she was encountering Inquisitors, who are former Jedi, of course. But they have committed themselves to the dark side in the Empire. So nobody's really telling it from a Jedi perspective. Very few Jedi even show up in this.
So the perspective of the storytelling is what matters. Because I was thinking, well, they dealt with Count Dooku in the Tales of the Empire, or excuse me, Tales of the Jedi Season 1.
True.
But that was really during his Jedi days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well, at least
it was.
Yeah. So I think they could have done it. But I kept asking myself, I said, self, why these two characters and why these two characters together? And Morgan Elsbeth makes a lot of sense. You know, we're in between Ahsoka seasons. We know we have a greenlit Ahsoka season 2. I'm more convinced than ever that we haven't seen the end of Morgan Elsbeth. I think she's going to be part of the Resurrected Witches. Just my feeling. But even if that's not the case, it does help when you go back and watch Ahsoka season 1. It does help you understand that character's motivations a bit and how she met Thrawn and what was going on there on Corvus. So that makes all the sense in the world. But then I was like, okay, but why Barriss Offee? Unless, because I don't think that Barriss is going to show up in any kind of future or immediate future content. I think it's something that had been knocking around for a while. Maybe it was going to be part of that Tales of the Jedi Season 2. And they thought, okay, well, I think we can probably squeeze this in Tales of the Empire. Like you said, Jim, it's all from a certain point of view, who's telling the story, what the perspective is. So I kind of feel like Barriss was meant for a Season 2 of Tales of the Jedi. And then they had this Elsbeth idea because they want to set up, and I think they realize that people need a little help. They need some handles going into Ahsoka Season 2 coming out of Season 1. And why not start now? Plus, Thrawn is a hot character that gives him some screen time. They can build that Clone Wars style model of Thrawn. So I think half was already sort of, I don't want to say it was in the can, but I think they had the idea previously. And then half was about what do we need to help fill in some gaps with the current storytelling.
I don't think it was as strategic as you're kind of portraying it as being, as far as the rollout of these stories, who they're going to choose to tell. Yeah, I think it's all Dave Filoni taking a page out of George Lucas's book. Really, George created the prequels because he had additional story to tell that provided a foundation for the original trilogy. In this case, I think Filoni had stories knocking around in his head, a fully fleshed out backstory for Morgan Elsbeth, which was 100% necessary, in my opinion. And he had a fate in his head for Barriss Offee, because we never see what happens to Barriss after that season 5 finale of the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka walks away from the Jedi Order and there's a trial and Barriss admits to losing faith in the Jedi. As a matter of fact, more than just losing faith in the Jedi, Barriss believed that the Jedi were serving the dark side, and the Jedi were fully responsible for the Clone War and everything that happened in it. She felt like they were being agents of evil, and decided to stop it from within by bombing the Jedi Temple and pinning it on Ahsoka Tano. And she also tried to pin it on Asajj Ventress as well, but Anakin Skywalker blew that story out of the water. So Barriss was presumably convicted. We never see her trial or anything like that, but we do see her admit to an open court that she was responsible.
And she had no regrets. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I feel real bad about it.
Right.
Or, you know, I've seen the light. And of course that led, I mean, when you bring up that whole arc, I mean, Ahsoka is an extraordinarily consequential character. And by extension, her leaving the Jedi Order is hugely important in her story. And Barriss Offee is at the center of that. So,
right.
Yeah. So good points about why her and I think you're right. I think that Dave is, you know, he is now the George Lucas to a great degree at Lucasfilm, and he's got these characters and these story ideas, and he's going to make sure that they have, and I'm happy for that. He's going to make sure that they get told. Speaking of tales, let's do a quick tale of the tape, because I do love to give the creatives the credit that they deserve. A lot of familiar names throughout these 6 episodes. But if we look at the first 3 episodes, we've got directors Nathaniel Villanueva and Stuart Lee. Nathaniel with the first and the third episode. Amanda Rose Munoz writing all of them in the Morgan Elsbeth arc. And we've got 43 minutes of content in that arc. So 43 minutes, original premiere date, of course, May the 4th, 2024. Then we get into the back half. We've got Saul Ruiz, Stuart Lee, and Nathaniel Villanueva all directing their episodes. And Matt Miknovitz writing episodes 5 and 6. And here's a new name. Not that new, but check this out. So episode 4, Devoted, written by Nicholas Anastasiou. Now, this is a name. This guy's been with ILM for a while. He goes back to the Phantom Menace. Actually had an on-screen role in Attack of the Clones. He's the Jedi that throws the lightsabers to Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah.
How's that? He was an editor on the Clone Wars, an editor on the Bad Batch, and here he is writing episode 4, Devoted. So that first episode, we meet Barriss Offee in prison and all of that. So congratulations to Matt, Nathaniel, Nicholas, Saul, Amanda. I think they wrote some great stuff and directed some great stuff visually. I think the series looked fantastic. But let's dig in, and we can probably take this. Your calls, by the way, this is a call-in show, so don't forget to call 708-866-1737. I see we already have some people in the switchboard, 708-866-1737. So you don't have to, we don't have to do this in any particular order. Your questions and your theories and your thoughts can be about any of the episodes, but I think we'll set the table arc by arc here, and we'll talk about the first 3 episodes with Morgan Elsbeth. And Jim, the first thing that we see is a recreation of that battle on Dathomir. So we've got General Grievous coming after the Dathomir witches. There was never really much of an alliance between the Dathomir witches and the Separatists. In fact, I think Mother Talzin was trying to undermine the wishes of Dooku. She sent Saj Ventress off to assassinate Dooku at one point. And I'm sure they didn't love the idea of resurrecting Darth Maul. That threw a wrench in some things. So I think the Dathomir witches had a big target on their backs for a while because of those things. But we get to see this recreation. It's kind of fun to see General Grievous back in action in his Clone Wars form.
Yeah, voiced by Matthew Wood, of course.
Yeah,
naturally.
Right.
This episode, the first episode here, The Path of Fear, it's basically a retelling of a Clone Wars episode, season 4, episode 19, Massacre. Somebody just recently reminded me, hey, they showed Grievous attack Dathomir in season 4 of the Clone Wars. I was like, oh my God, that's right, isn't it? It's all because Dooku sent Grievous there to basically get revenge on the Night Sisters because of the actions of Asajj Ventress. And they knew Ventress was hiding out there. So this episode was told from a certain perspective already way back in February 2012 in the episode Massacre from the Clone Wars, which was written by Katie Lucas, I might add. And it's interesting to see then that Grievous was up to some other things other than fighting with old Daka or whatever the old ancient elder of the Night Sisters, who she resurrected the army of the undead Night Sisters to aid in the fight against the Separatists, but it didn't really go well, especially after old Daka got
boy, I got to go back and rewatch that.
It's a great rewatch. After I watched Tales the first time with you out in Bristol, I might add.
That's right.
And Tyler was there, and our buddy Joel Kramer.
By the way, we had to pull all the shades and black out all the light so that we could see what was going on. And that was, that was the hotel TV. So now I've watched this on multiple screens for you people that are always defending how dark everything is. But
boy, I'll tell you, you really notice how darkness has really become a factor in Star Wars animation when you go back and watch that Clone Wars episode Massacre from 2012.
Oh, interesting.
You can actually see things. While I do appreciate the level of lighting and shadows and the darkness that is in animation right now, I think they're being a little too heavy-handed in that approach. And it does make it makes picking out the detail very difficult. Almost when I was watching Massacre, and then I immediately started my rewatch of this episode, The Path of Fear. And I noticed the lighting, but I also noticed there's a certain bit of sharpness that exists in the Clone Wars episodes from the early, from 2012 compared to now. It seems like it's a little bit fuzzy almost compared to how sharp the animation was in those older episodes. But these are aesthetic choices being made by the producers who create these shows, and they like to use the most modern tools in their toolbox.
This is great. If you're following in the chat, Peter Beiser just agreed to buy Jimmy Mac and me both OLED TVs. So Mac and I are both going to get OLED TVs courtesy.
Sure. Yes, yeah. But it doesn't, really diminish my enjoyment of the shows. I just think they're being a little too heavy-handed.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that it's all part of some of the new tools that they have and all of that.
Right.
Show that stuff off and
dip their toe in those waters.
But yeah, I'm like you. I want to see what's going on, and I especially wanted to see what was going on here on Dathomir as Morgan Elsbeth witnesses the death of her mother at the hands of Grievous. We didn't realize when we were watching it back in Clone Wars Season 4 that was going on. You have to look real closely. That's how brilliant these guys were. That was all happening right there in the background. You didn't know.
They just moved the camera. That's it.
Yeah. There is a little callback in the dialogue. We used to love when Filoni would put all these callbacks to the original trilogy. I have a bad feeling about this, of course, and things like that. But now we're getting callbacks to prequel dialogue, as Grievous says, "Wipe them out, all of them." So that's a terrible Grievous, but it goes back to "wipe them out, all of them." From
True, it is a callback to Darth Sidious and the Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
but also to once again bring up that Clone Wars episode from 2012, Massacre, when Dooku tells Grievous to go attack Dathomir and take care of the Night Sisters, he says to Grievous, "Wipe them out, all of them."
Oh, no way. That's cool.
So,
okay. That's very
So there's
cool.
other dots to be connected.
Wow.
And
So
like I
meta.
said, it was Katie Lucas who wrote that episode. So she was, giving a shout out to her pops. Meanwhile, also echoing the words of Darth Sidious, the Emperor. So Count Dooku, obviously under the influence of the dark side, and Darth Sidious, he's going to quote him any chance he gets, and he does so in that episode Massacre.
That's really cool. So we got Morgan. She's witnessing the death of her mother, and it's at this moment, I think, where she starts to essentially immediately, it's like she starts plotting her revenge, and what does she go after? She'll talk about it a little later in the episodes about just power. And Jim, earlier we were talking about, or I brought up about the difference between these characters, or why these two characters compare, contrast. And one is the origin, one is the destiny. But when you do look at their arcs here, you got Morgan, who ends up doing everything and anything she can to find favor with the Empire, because she's never going to be powerless again, like she was when she watched her mother die on Dathomir. But Barriss gets really no choice. She's conscripted, and we find out very quick in that episode what happens when you think that you can, walk away from the Inquisitor recruiters. So another area where these two characters differ very much, whereas, Morgan walks right into the arms of the Empire, whereas Barriss is kind of, forced into it. But, I mean, Morgan, she definitely sees immediately the potential to never be weak, never be able to be taken over or hurt by anybody again. This clan of, the Mountain Clan.
Yeah.
We never saw them before in Clone Wars. Any other time we've seen Dathomir, I don't think we've ever. They're new, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't know how new they are, because in the novel, the old expanded universe novel that introduced us to Dathomir and the Night Sisters, it was called The Courtship of Princess Leia by Dave Wolverton.
Mm-hmm.
And in that novel, you encounter the Singing Mountain Clan. That's the name of the group of Night Sisters, or I should say,
those were the Von
Dathomir
Trapps.
witches. What's that?
Those were the Von Trapps, the Singing Mountain Clan.
What is that? The Sound of Music?
Yeah. They were up in the mountains, and they sang. They were mountain people.
Okay, but no, this is maybe that influenced Courtship of Princess Leia.
So they were really called the Singing
Clan.
Mountain Clan.
Right.
Huh.
And now I think they're being reintroduced into canon as just the Mountain Clan.
The Mountain
Because, as an audience, if you introduce a group called the Singing Mountain Clan, you're expecting some singing and some songs. And I don't think that they're ready to deliver. So they just removed the singing part and have named them the old Mountain Clan.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Singing Mountain Clan was from the expanded universe Courtship of Princess Leia. It was a Dathomiri witch clan in a village located near a location called, you guessed it, the Singing Mountain. And they were bitter rivals with the Night Sisters. Bitter rivals. And
because the Night Sisters are down in the valley, and you've got the Mountain Clan, they're up in the mountains. And you this is something that you see in Star Wars, like the Gungans and the Naboo, where they inhabit the same planet. They're right there kind of together, but they don't have much to do with one another, and they're very suspicious of each other. I kind of think of the Mountain Clan and the Night Sisters as being sort of similar in that way.
Yeah. And but they don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And I think most notably how to use their magics.
Mm-hmm.
There's some characters that emerged from the Singing Mountain Clan back in the expanded universe that became regular members of the expanded universe roster. Tananel Dejo, she was with Luke against the battle against the Yuzan Vong, and her daughter Tanel Ka was a member of the Young Jedi Knights novels with Jason and Jaina Solo and Lobaka, remember Lobaka?
Lobaka.
And,
oh yeah.
So I think they've been around for a while. It's just kind of a different twist on them to just be called the Mountain Clan as opposed to the Singing Mountain Clan, but they have their origins in the expanded universe.
What's really fascinating here is how this mother, the high priestess, I don't think she has a name.
Selena.
Oh, it is Selena.
Yeah, Mother Selena.
Mother Selena. Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I think that is
the daughter, right?
No, the daughter is Nali. Nali's the daughter, Mother Selena. She's voiced by Diana Lee Inosanto, who plays the adult Morgan Elsbeth.
Really? I thought Diana Lee was playing. Hold on. Are you sure Diana Lee isn't playing the voice of Morgan Elsbeth's mother?
That's a good question. No, I could have sworn it was. Maybe it is. Yeah, you know what? That would make more sense to me if
Right.
it worked out that way. Because I don't know all the names of the characters. Maybe Mother Selena is the mom who was killed, the one who was using those Night Sister sickles to duel with Grievous.
Yes.
That must be. That doesn't make any sense. You know, I'm just going off the credits.
Right.
I've done no like outside research or anything like that.
No, it's hard. I really wish that StarWars.com was better about putting episode guides and things. I loved that when they would do that with Clone Wars and they did it with Rebels because, you know, help us out a little bit here. I don't know how these people walk into these things knowing exactly who these characters are. But anyway, regardless, we've got the head of the Mountain Clan there. And she sees and notices immediately that Morgan, who they bring in, say, hey, you can be one of us now. And then her markings fade off of her face. And
that's cool.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. That sort of explains why she doesn't have those markings, I guess, when we meet her in Book of Boba Fett. Or not Book of Boba. It's a Book of Boba Fett. God. Sometimes I forget these crossovers. No, it was in Mandalorian season 2, right? That's when we first meet Ahsoka.
Yes.
It's all very inbred on these shows, by the way. They all end up on each other's shows. They're like the Rat Pack.
And we do meet up with Morgan Elsbeth also in The Mandalorian, the same episode we meet up with Ahsoka. And,
right.
it's good. I think it's really good to get the backstory on Morgan Elsbeth. And, this sets up this arc, these 3 episodes set up who Morgan is, where she came from, how she landed on Corvus, how she became in command of that village and essentially the planet on Corvus, and how she's connected to Thrawn and everything. It's all there. And those things were big holes in the story as far as I was concerned. I wanted to know more about how she was connected to Thrawn, how she came into power, all of that. And we get that in these 3 episodes in this arc.
Wow, you just summarized the whole thing.
Well, I did, but there's more detail to get into. I mean, it's not like I'm revealing the story. I think most people listening have already heard.
Right.
They know what the story is.
But so you've got Morgan, and she's immediately after she's taken in by this other clan. She's like, wow, the separatists aren't going to stop. These droids aren't going to stop with just the lowlands, the valley. They're going to be coming after you too. And so she's able to recruit a couple of the others to go, and I think are they trying to get weapons or something? She has weapons, but I think they're trying to get a stockpile of other weapons. That's why they're going back down there.
Well, yeah, she has weapons stashed away.
Right.
Of course, the Mountain Clan, they don't have weapons.
Right. They're pacifists, I guess.
Yes. Or they just believe in fighting by casting spells and things of that nature. To use something else is like barbaric to them or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Morgan has the weapons, and that's how she lures. She uses fear of a separatist attack to influence and encourage some of these younger singing or Mountain Clan witches.
Right.
And, they get nervous. They want to protect themselves. They don't feel like they have what it takes to hold off an army. They, an army of droids and stuff.
No, they see the old lady. She doesn't seem like she's all that concerned. So, it's easy to think when the elders like that aren't running around scared to death that they're out of touch. They're clueless. Maybe they don't have what it takes to lead anymore. But, the Mountain Clan mother, she resists the fear that Morgan is trying to sow. But it's the same fear that propels Morgan forward. So Morgan is just like all about securing her place in the universe so that she's never a victim again. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And I was looking for something maybe a little bit more sophisticated than that in terms of her desires or her motivation. But I think at the end of the day, that's really what it is. So she leads this little excursion down. They meet up with the battle droids, super battle droids, and the daughter. I can't remember if they both die, but certainly the daughter of the clan mother, she dies, and that's it for Morgan. She's no longer, welcome there. You can imagine. And she says, the mother says, as she's walking away, carrying the body of her dead daughter, that Morgan's fate, her path, you could say fate, is set. She says, I pity you for what, for I can see what is to come. And of course we know, we know her fate up to the point of Ahsoka. I still think there's another chapter coming for Morgan Elsbeth. But, so the daughter is killed. Morgan brings ironically, she brings the same destruction to the Mountain Clan that wiped out her clan there in the valley. But when you're talking about the weapons earlier, Jim, I was reminded of the line that Yoda gives to Luke in The Empire Strikes Back when he's about to go in the cave. He says, your weapons, you will not need them. Luke takes them anyway, and of course, what does Luke find? Luke finds conflict. Luke finds Vader in that case. But why was the Mountain Clan mother so confident? Because she has this incredible power, which something we've never seen in, certainly not in animation, this type of power where she wipes out at least one unit of super battle droids by just sort of appearing and creating this huge blast of energy, kills them all, or what, short circuits them. I don't know, whatever you say. Can you kill a droid? I don't know. What do you do? He just destroys them.
3PO sure seems to think so. He's always worried about his mortality,
Right. So major foreshadowing there at the end, as the old lady tells Morgan that her fate is something that she pities her for. So Morgan's certainly not making any friends. So she loses, in this case, the only chance that she really had, probably to remain on Dathomir and have any connection to her previous life there.
When the matriarch of the singing clan or the mountain clan says, states she can see the future and she sees what Morgan will become. It's a good line of dialogue because we know what Morgan will become. We've seen Morgan push to her absolute limits and, take evil as far as she's going to take it. But when lines like that happen and you don't know, it can be a little frustrating. But in this case, it's instant satisfaction because you're like, why are they turning their back on Morgan? Maybe Morgan just made a mistake right here. Maybe Morgan needs a new family and you're turning your back on her. You guys are all Dathomiri witches. You should stick together regardless of what clan you're from. But the mother she has a glimpse of the future and sees Morgan is going to end up being no good. And it provides total closure to the story, and Morgan being exiled from the Mountain Clan because we know it's not playing games with us. It's being very crystal clear in its messaging about what happens to Morgan, and we're on board with it because we know. I have some final thoughts on this particular episode.
Final thoughts already. Here we go, folks.
Already. Morgan fights commando droids with a bow like Omega, but the commando droids use swords. Have we ever seen commando droids or any droids use swords in Star Wars? In the Dark Forces video game, the Phase 1 Dark Trooper had a sword and a shield. And it kind of reminded me of those Jason and the Argonauts fighting skeletons. But in this case, we see a commando droid with a sword. I never recall seeing them. Commando droids were first introduced to Star Wars animation way back in season 1 of Clone Wars in the episode Rookies, from season 5. I believe that's when they were first introduced. So if anybody in the chat can remember any other times battle droids or commando droids used swords, let us know. Young Morgan is voiced by Kathy Ang. Any relationship to Michelle Ang, who voices Omega? I don't know. I didn't look into that.
It's
Somebody in the chat
like
was
Smith
asking
over
that.
there. I think it's a very common name. Ang.
She's known, probably best known as playing Lily Goldenblatt in the Sex and the City spinoff, And Just Like That, which I never saw an episode of. And she also is known for voicing Fei in Netflix Over the Moon, which I missed that one too, unfortunately.
Oh.
But those are, so she's seen some on-camera work as well as being a voice actor. I always like to know who's providing the vocals for these characters when it comes to Star Wars animation. I almost feel like I have to vet them out or something.
You do, because you never know. They might end up in live action if the character takes off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Look at Katie Sackhoff.
Right.
Look at others. So you put me on the spot. But those are just my final thoughts on this episode. I thought it was a good introduction to Morgan. I thought it was really cool when she, all of these Night Sisters are all under spells, like all the time, and it results in these markings on their face. And when the spells wear off, the markings disappear. I thought that was interesting. I always thought, so like when the Night Sisters in Ahsoka, they press their thumbs into Morgan's eyes and her eyes light on fire and she gets all those markings all over her face. If she survived that, but separated herself from those old witches, those markings probably would have faded again. So I don't know. I find that interesting. I like to know a little bit about the Night Sisters, any information I get about them. I really enjoy. And those face markings, I noticed that they were consistently inconsistent, let's just say.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's get into the second episode here. The Path of Anger. And it starts off with, I love it because Morgan is on Star Wars Shark Tank here as she's pitching the TIE Defender to the Imperial Sharks.
Man, those are tough sharks too, man.
Yeah, they really are. So this is really the pitch meeting. But they're not so much interested, as they reveal. What's that guy? Moff Istain. I want to say Disdain, but that'd be too on.
Yeah, right.
So we'll just take the D off. Istain. Yeah. He lets Morgan know in no short order that he's not really interested in her ideas so much as he's interested in Corvus and the all of the resources there. So he's like, well, now that you've brought Corvus to our attention, we'll take what's ours. And so she's rebuffed and obviously frustrated. The other thing that's kind of interesting here is that, when she goes back to when she goes back to Corvus, it all becomes about jobs. She apparently rose to power there on Corvus because she promised them prosperity and jobs. Yeah. And so it was very political, like bread. What do they call that? Like supper table issues, that kind of thing. It was about jobs and security and safety and all of that. So as we were watching her on Corvus and with Wang and some of these other characters, and she became such
Wing.
Is that it? Is it Wing?
Yeah.
Vowels matter, folks. Vowels
yes,
matter.
they do. Wang dang, sweet food tang. As Ted Nugent used to be fond of saying.
With Wing and the others, and she obviously became a tyrant and a totalitarian. But definitely single-minded. She's not going to let this idea, these ideas die. But she's brought to the attention of the right guy, Captain Paleon. So Captain Paleon, it takes a shine to her. Isn't totally blown away by her ideas, but he really likes. There's something in her. He likes the drive. He likes the fact that she seems that, like Paleon's boss Thrawn, she's wanting to work, let's put it this way, smarter, not harder. I think that's what's at the heart of this. And that's what drives Thrawn, as he talks later about, some of the mistakes that he sees the Empire making. And she's trying to work a lot in that direction. Efficiency, these TIE fighters or these TIE defenders, they have shields. And, that's a good start. If I was a shark there, I think I would go for the vessel with shields. But it all comes down to cost. They say it's prohibitively expensive. So they're willing to put, they just cannon fodder, blaster fodder are their troopers and their pilots. They don't care. They've got the numbers. And if they don't have people volunteering, they'll just take them. So it's all a numbers game for them. Whereas Pelion and Thrawn represent a more sophisticated way of looking at things. So now you start to see why they're connected.
It's all about numbers. How low can they keep the cost, and how many can they produce?
Right.
They want quantity over quality.
Yes.
Because the Empire doesn't care about the pilots. They're acceptable losses.
Right.
But if they can, fly 1,000 TIE fighters into battle, overwhelm the opposition immediately, then they're good with that. These TIE defenders, sure, they protect the pilots, but they also cost a fortune to produce. It'd be much better to get, as opposed to 10 TIE defenders, 100 TIE fighters. It's more about the Empire and the way they operate.
It's cheaper. It's cheaper.
They operate. Yeah, they want the best bang for their buck, and they also like displays of shock and awe. So I think it's more about how many and how cheaply it can get done.
Yeah.
This episode opened with the 4 Venator class Star Destroyers flanking one single Imperial class Star Destroyer, and that was kind of gave me an idea of where this is on the timeline. It's definitely post Clone Wars, but prior to Star Wars Rebels. I think this is maybe just a little bit after the Bad Batch season finale, because we're still seeing the Venators in service, but we're also seeing introduction of Imperial class Star Destroyers, which we know so well from the beginning of A New Hope, etc. And
so
the first thing that jumped,
Coruscant,
when Morgan Elsbeth was in her Shark Tank session with the Empire, they referred to her as magistrate. So this is right away, we know that she has assumed that title, and we find out how she serves it once we get back on Corvus. Speaking of Corvus, like you said, Morgan made a big mistake in front of the Moffs by bragging about how not only her planet Corvus, but the planets in the system surrounding it are rife with raw goods and materials. So the Empire wants to take what is theirs and visit Corvus, not for TIE defenders, but for their natural resources. And Pelion shows up, thank God for Morgan, at least she's going away from this meeting with something. But Pelion reveals that his superior, and we all know that's Thrawn, is looking for talented people with vision and ideas. So I think that's what he sees. However, Thrawn is a big champion and proponent, pushing the TIE defender as the key thing that's going to be the protector of the Empire and the thing that helps enforce Imperial rule throughout the galaxy. Thrawn is all about that by the time he appears in Star Wars Rebels. So we know that this relationship builds from beyond these Tales of the Empire stories. We know that they forge a relationship and work together all the way up through Star Wars Rebels, when Thrawn disappears eventually, and then Morgan pledges herself to bringing him back. So I like the foundation this is laying down for everything from chapter 13 of The Mandalorian in season 2, The Jedi, which also featured the debut of Ahsoka, we all know. And also it sets up Ahsoka and gives us a clue as to what's motivating Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah,
You know, she wants to see the return.
This is where it gets a little thin for me on the motivation.
How so?
Because you really have to read into it quite a bit to come away with the fact that, or maybe I should just say, it's a very broad motivation. She wants power. She wants power. She never wants to be powerless like she once was on Dathomir. And so when she first has her conversation with Pelion, she says, "Oh, for the glory of the Empire," because Pelion asks her point blank, why do you want? What is it that you want to lend your substantial talents and vision to the Empire? And she says, "Why, for the glory of the Empire, of course." Later, when she's talking to Thrawn, she says, "Power. I want power." They seem to be kind of the same thing to me. Glory of the Empire. What does the Empire stand for? What does it bring you? Power, safety. At least that's what the PR says. But aside from that, she just wants power. Like she just wants safety. She wants security.
No. Well, she admits later in the episode when she has the one-on-one with Thrawn that she is seeking Imperial favor because she's motivated by revenge, and she's trying to acquire power within the Empire and firepower, for that matter, to get revenge on any enemy that has crossed her. Because the Separatists are gone at this point, and the Separatists are the ones that attacked the planet Dathomir in the first place. But Morgan is seeking revenge for what? From who? If the Separatists are taken out of the equation, then who is she?
She doesn't
really
say revenge. She says power. She says, "I seek power to ensure my future, to destroy my enemies. My anger gives me strength, and it is that strength that I offer the Empire."
She doesn't say revenge to Thrawn?
She does not say revenge to Thrawn. No.
Oh. Why am I walking away with...
I think you would read into it, but I went down that path. And then I was like, but who is this? Who does she want revenge? Because the ultimate joke in this is the fact that she's pledging allegiance to the very power that gave the order to destroy her culture there on Dathomir. She doesn't obviously know it.
She doesn't know that, yeah.
She doesn't know it. But there's no Separatists to get revenge against.
Right. Yeah, so that's why, I mean, that's puzzling. For some reason, I took revenge out of the equation. She's not seeking
because
revenge from, there's discussion of a growing rebellion.
Yes.
But there's no indication that whatever shape of the rebellion is in, poses any threat or concern to Morgan. She does talk about how her people were destroyed, her culture, her beliefs, everything's been erased from memory. And here's what she says: "I seek power to ensure my future, to destroy my enemies." So yeah, she is saying revenge. I mean, to destroy my enemies is another way of saying she's seeking revenge. And she's tapping into the dark side, whether she knows it or not. I don't know what sort of connection she has to the Force. I think all the witches are feeding off the Force to cast their spells. All their magic is actually their way of manipulating the Force. And
well, it's a different type of Force user, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, if it's all in the same universe, it seems like
the source of the power is the same. It's just in how they use it.
Right. So I guess she doesn't flat out say the word revenge, but she does seek to strike down her enemies. And to me, that's part of the definition of revenge. So,
okay. I don't know about that, but we'll give it to you. We'll give it to you. I think the whole thing is, I think that the revenge is sort of implied. Where it falls apart for me is that there's no one to get revenge against. The Separatists are gone. Dooku is dead. Grievous is dead. The only one that exists still is the person who gave the order to wipe out Dathomir, and that's Palpatine. She doesn't know who that is. So
Well, it was
that's
Dooku.
why it's a bit
if
of a
you know,
tragedy.
it was Dooku. And there's really been no indication that Palpatine had wanted Dooku to strike against Dathomir. But Dooku was the leader of the Separatists, so he had that power at his disposal and could do with it what he wants.
And I think Palpatine would have eventually taken the witches out. The witches would have posed a threat to him, and although maybe he learned from them because they have figured out that possession thing. Don't we see the witches possessing at one point?
See the witches doing what?
Possessing people. Isn't it? Who gets possessed by the witches? By the spirit of Talzin.
It's funny in that episode Massacre. Mother Talzin makes a voodoo doll of Dooku. It really starts messing with him, you know.
Is he wearing those PJs?
No, he's sitting at his desk doing paperwork or something, paying his bills, and all of a sudden these boils started popping off his forehead. He's like, oh my God, what the hell?
Boils.
She starts, setting it on fire, dipping it in steaming hot water, things like that. Just having fun. Is only a witch can do.
Right. Well, let's talk to, we're going to talk to Luke over here because Luke is, he's talking about Thrawn. He's got some thoughts about Thrawn showing up in this particular episode. Hey, Luke, also a Patreon member.
Hey, guys.
Luke, hey.
Chut.
We're just talking about, if we don't get to these calls now, by the rate we're going, we won't get to them till 1 a.m. So we're going to have to take these as we're chatting. But you've got something to say about Thrawn?
Yeah, he had the best line in this episode of the second Elsbeth episode where she says, you speak of the growing rebellion. And he responds, a sickness which kills both common man and king. And I thought that was a very poignant line. I thought
very Shakespeare-like.
It was great hearing. Yeah, it was great hearing Thrawn say that. And, it's true. I just got done watching a bit of the Benjamin Franklin series on Apple TV, and that has, it alludes to the French Revolution. And sure enough, common man and king in that revolution, lost their heads. And
for sure.
Like that. So it's a very poignant line. So I thought that was the best line of the episode.
It is. And what it establishes is that, even by the time we get to A New Hope, it seems like even Tarkin isn't taking the rebellion as seriously as he needs to. Thrawn is taking the rebellion quite seriously, even during its infancy. And it's through dialogue like that you realize that, he's there to sort of see problems before they become, little problems before they become big problems.
Now, it is true that Tarkin was kind of laissez-faire about the rebellion, maybe, by the time we catch up to him in A New Hope. But he is riding that Death Star through the galaxy. So I think his confidence got a real boost at one point. I do believe that Thrawn... I think in this era, Tarkin may have been a little more concerned with the rebellion. But once he got behind the steering wheel of that Death Star, he really, that was a boost of confidence. He wasn't so concerned anymore.
Anything else, Luke?
Yeah. So the only other thing I wanted to say was I went to see The Phantom Menace on May the 4th.
Cool.
25 years ago, I walked into a theater in Sarasota, Florida as a 9-year-old kid with my aunt. She took me to see The Phantom Menace when I was 9. So I was the same age as a young Jake Lloyd in those eras that day.
Wow.
And, man, it holds up. It holds up. And I just want to say, I have no idea if he ever listens, but I know you guys have interviewed him. Jake, man, fantastic. You're just as great watching you now when I'm 33 as when I was 9 years old. There's nothing bad about that performance. I have no idea why anybody ever criticized him. It's just fantastic. The pod race scene, Qui-Gon Jinn, the Duel of the Fates, the music. That movie is fantastic. It's my A New Hope because I wasn't old enough to see it.
Right.
I obviously wasn't born at the 70s.
Yeah.
But I was a little kid. I was 9 years old, and that was my A New Hope. And so I just wanted to say that. I told Tyler the same thing.
Luke, you were the
I kind of got to
reason.
get that little touch of that.
you as a 9-year-old, that's one of the reasons why George started telling Anakin's story at that age, because that was George's audience in his mind, was 9-10-year-old kids.
It certainly wasn't old guys like you and me, Swank,
you
from the
go
original
from-
trilogy era. He was crafting a film
Right.
for kids because he had a kid. His kid, his son was somewhere like close to that age, I would say, in '99, and that was what a great gateway for younger fans to get into Star Wars at the turn of the century. I mean, a lot of older fans were crapping all over it and everything, but look at you. You're a perfect example of somebody whose fandom was forged by those films, and in a very profound way too.
All right, Luke, thanks for calling, buddy. Appreciate it. The exchange that she has with Thrawn. So she essentially pledges her allegiance to Thrawn. So by the end of that second episode, you realize that the alliance between the two is there, and she goes in full tilt to take her place there as one of Thrawn's, do I dare say, acolytes? She's definitely a Thrawn acolyte. And then
she's been recruited, that's for sure.
Right. And they don't just take anybody. Oh, but I should mention here that we get a nice, for you EU fans, the nice Rook appearance.
Yeah.
Rook. We saw him in Rebels, but he looks, this is the makeovers that these characters get from the Rebels, the ones that have premiered in Rebels and that they get as in sort of the Clone War style is great. We haven't seen Thrawn as done in Clone War style. We haven't seen Rook done in Clone War style, but here they are, and they're great. They look fantastic. I love that style.
Yeah. Not only did the characters look fantastic, but the action sequence was outstanding. Morgan versus Rook. It was really great fight choreography. I really enjoyed it when she took the spear and jammed it into the handle of the blade he was swinging around. And she started whipping that sucker. Oh, that was really awesome.
She was using the Beskar spear in that fight.
Yes, the same Beskar spear she fights Ahsoka Tano with in The Mandalorian. And then Pelion appears and reveals it was a test to make sure she could handle herself.
Yeah.
And for the most part, she's been officially recruited after that test because Pelion says, I look forward to working with you. So it's a real, welcome aboard, soldier. You are now a member of the Empire.
Now, Pelion
then shows up. Yeah.
Now, Pelion, we didn't see Pelion in Rebels, did we? We saw Pelion
yes, we did.
We did see Pelion in Rebels.
Yes.
So now Pelion has been in Rebels, one version of Pelion, the Rebels animation. We've seen him now in Tales, which is sort of the Clone Wars style of animation. Yes. And we saw him in Mandalorian in live action. He was part of the Shadow Council.
Yes. All of the above.
Boy, for a character that started out kind of obscure and just in those original Zahn novels, he's quite prolific now. Shown up in a lot of places.
I'm not 100% sure on the Rebels thing.
Well, I know that Rook was. We saw Rook.
No, he was. Actually, okay. He appeared in the last episode, but I think it was just over a comm link. Like you didn't physically see him, but you heard him. Am I remembering that correctly? Gang in the chat?
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he was at least referenced in Rebels at some point, but Pelion, obviously a very important character in the Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn. As a matter of fact, I believe the first dialogue in those novels in the book Heir to the Empire, I believe he had the first dialogue. I mean, he's like the first character that we get introduced to.
Gosh, you're right. After because I think there's the prologue with Luke and Ben, right? And Ben says that he's not going to be able to appear to Luke anymore. I thought that was
the prologue. Even appeared after Pelion was introduced.
Oh, really?
The way that Zahn wrote these novels, he rolled them out like Star Wars films. And at that point, we only had the 3 from the original trilogy. All 3 of those films begin with an Imperial starship. And so Zahn took that and ran with it. And we get introduced to the Empire first in Heir to the Empire, with a scene on the bridge that introduces Grand Admiral Thrawn and everything. Then the cutaway to Luke with Ben saying, Luke, my time here is over. They want me to be a ghost full time, but like, you can't see me no more. I gotta go. I gotta go be dead. There's a lot of things you gotta do when you're dead, and they want me to get to work doing it. So I'm out of here. Bye.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember. Wow, what a bummer. What a bummer that was for Luke. By the way, most of the folks here tonight, it seems, certainly those that are already called us up, want to talk about the Barriss Offee arc. So if you want to talk about Morgan Elsbeth, that's the number, 708-866-1737. Now's your time to get on, because I don't care how long these Barriss Offee people have been waiting. I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to the Morgan Elsbeths right now, because that's what we're talking about. So we'll get
That's
to
the way it was all
everybody.
rolled out, you know.
Yeah, we'll get to everybody. Okay, so the third episode, Path of Hate, is a quickie, a little 13-minute episode, and but it's significant. It takes place. It's really I think a prequel to when we first meet Morgan there on Corvus in season 2 of Mandalorian.
Absolutely, yes.
So it definitely leads you into there. We see Wing. And there's this ambassador that shows up from the New Republic, Nadura. And I don't think we've seen Nadura before. I think she's a new character for this episode. Oh, thank God.
She's a new character. She is voiced by voice actor Shelby Young, who is also known as providing the voice of Princess Leia in Force of Destiny. And
is that right?
she's been Leia in Lego Star Wars shows, all kind of things. So
cool.
She definitely has Star Wars street cred, as she voices Ambassador Nadura in this Return to Corvus episode.
And we were watching this in the hotel room, and when these soldiers showed up, our buddy Joel Kramer goes, "Oh, look, Matt Lanter troopers." So that is the New Republic troopers are now Matt Lanter troopers, because Matt was the first one we really saw wearing that that uniform.
So this it indicates to you where we are on the timeline now.
Yes.
We're definitely post Return of the Jedi. So a big leap from the previous episode when Morgan has established herself there on Corvus. Now she's been in charge for 20, 25 years. So you have to keep that in account with everything that's happening in this episode. Her power has grown, and she's become distant and aloof, unavailable to the people who she rules over with an iron fist, kind of like the Emperor himself.
Yeah, and there's some dialogue later on when she's talking to... Actually, maybe that was in the last episode. Was she talking to Wing in the last... Yeah, she's talking to Wing in the last episode. And he says to her, "But you promised us work and prosperity." And she says, "The Empire wants only your resources, not your people and not my ideas." She doesn't even say our people. She says your people. So she's definitely an outsider ruler type. You know, they want your resources and your people, not my ideas. So she definitely, even back then, is seeing herself as something separate, maybe better than.
Well, Wing was the former governor of Corvus. So she sort of took his power, you know?
Yeah.
And replaced him. She
like
overthrew
he gave
him.
it to her. Because he says in this episode, I should never have allowed the witch to take over. So,
right.
You know, and it was all about those bread and butter issues, jobs and stuff like that. So I don't think there was an election, but I think she probably had a popular groundswell of support because she was promising prosperity, and you know, all the jobs were going to Mexico there from Corvus. They were going to China
or wherever,
Mexico.
Taiwan, China, wherever, you know. It's like, the jobs went elsewhere.
Right.
Tatooine.
Well, what's interesting about Nadura is she's actually from Corvus. So she's coming back to sort of, and she's shocked because Wing has no clue that there's been a fall of the Empire. That's how locked down everybody is and everything is. They're closed off. He didn't even know it. And the proposition that she brings, now this is interesting as we're starting to learn about the New Republic. The proposition that Nadura brings to Morgan is, she says, I brought a petition to the Senate for Corvus to become a member planet. Yay, good news. They're willing to accept. So you can be a member of the New Republic. But you have to step down and relinquish your control of the local systems. And if you will not comply, I will have to arrest you. These are pretty, I would say, pretty harsh, aggressive tactics by the New Republic. Like, hey, you want to be a member of our club? Great. If so, we're going to take all your power away. And if you don't want to be a member of our club, we're going to throw you in prison.
Do you accept our terms?
Right.
She goes, no. Attack these suckers. Of course, Morgan pushes back. She has attack droids. She also has other soldiers at her disposal, who we see later when they burn down the forest. But she's not going to accept those terms, even though Neruda says she wants to help Morgan get a fair trial. Hey, a trial is a trial, okay? That's fair or not.
Right, right.
Morgan's not going to put herself in front of the tribunal to have the sentence put down on her, which she knows is inevitable. So she tells her droids to attack.
Right. And then there is one line here that she says to Nadura, because Nadura, she remembers her. She says, oh, you left years ago because you didn't want to work in our factories. But she says, I've had a vision and I will fulfill my destiny. This is Morgan to Nadura. And we know that part of what's motivating her in the Filoni-verse is this vision of Thrawn's return, this vision of bringing the Night Sisters back. The Night Sisters are speaking to Morgan in her dreams or something. So this is definitely telegraphing that she's already begun at this point having those visions, having those dreams or whatever they are about ushering in a new era with Thrawn and resurrecting her sisters.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I've been reading the chat.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's all right. So then
I'll admit it. I wasn't even listening to you, man.
It was a great
point.
Looking
at what people are saying in the chat. I got it. Forget the chat. That's a big distraction to me.
Don't distract Jimmy Mack.
Yeah, I won't let. No, I distracted myself.
Don't distract with that interesting conversation. But then they raise the forest. She instructs her minions to go out there, and of course, this is the condition that we would see it then when we see it in Mandalorian season.
Now, it seems interesting to me that a Morgan Elsbeth, who is bragging to the Imperial Moffs about the resources, the plentiful resources, that she goes out and destroys the trees. It seems like in that case, she's destroying the resources. I think it was done as a method of intimidation to keep the people in line.
Yeah, definitely.
To show how quickly things can get destroyed if Morgan Elsbeth wants them to be destroyed. So it was just a thing, because you saw the citizens in the village all reacting like you would if they burned down the forest next to your house. You would probably be very upset about that, and they're feeling it in the village. And I think that's just a way for Morgan to keep everyone in line. It's a method of intimidation, but it's great that we get to see it, because one of the questions I had when Din Djarin appeared on Corvus was, why are all the trees burnt out? I just didn't understand it.
Right. Well, I thought it
now it all makes sense.
I thought it was an example, and it still could be. We know definitively why, because we actually see it in front of our eyes. But I think the idea at the time, at least the way I interpreted it, was this was a overly mined, overly harvested in terms of resources planet.
Yes.
So it was nothing left, but there was no nutrients for the trees. But I think you're right that it was definitely intimidation. And she says to her people, she says, I understand that you must be frightened. But I'm here to reassure you, you're all under my protection. So she sort of created
Right. Yeah.
this the illusion of war or of battle. She says the fires will continue. You're all under my protection. The fires will continue burning. You will work night and day, but you do so knowing that you'll be part of an effort that will save our galaxy from ruin. So that's sort of like
she's burning the forest. She's burning the forest to send a message. Hey, look, the forest is burning. It's going to keep on burning. Be happy you're not burning.
Right.
You can be burning, but you're not.
Right.
Count your blessings, fools. Yes. So that's exactly why she torched the place.
So there's the ushering Thrawn. Then we've got the death of Nadora. And I guess some people might have recognized the voice, but at the end, she's telling Wing to be, steadfast and to be ready to do his part, even if it's small, he can make a difference. Then she has the comm link, and on the other end of the comm link, you hear, "Who is this? I received your distress signal. Come in. Who is this?" And the captions reveal that it's Bo-Katan.
Right.
So Bo-Katan.
I recognized Katie's voice the second I heard it, and it made and I anticipated that she would be on the other end of the line, because in Mandalorian season 2, when Din is looking for Ahsoka, or he's just looking for somebody to train the kid to be with Grogu, to teach Grogu the ways of the Jedi, he meets Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan knows where Ahsoka is, and she points Din in the direction of Corvus. Why does she know Ahsoka's there? Because Bo then went to investigate this distress call she received from Neruda and discovered what Morgan Elsbeth has going on Corvus. Maybe even Bo interrogated or interviewed Morgan Elsbeth and realized that Morgan was somebody who was an ally of Thrawn.
Right.
And put two and two together, and then Ahsoka comes knocking on Bo-Katan's door and says, "Hey, do you know anything about how to find Grand Admiral Thrawn? I'm trying to find Ezra." And she goes, "Oh, I know somebody who might know." And that's how Ahsoka ends up on Corvus. This is great foundation and backstory for that episode of The Mandalorian, and for the Ahsoka series in general. It's great stuff to have. I mean, it really helps provide some backbone.
Yeah, I want to address something here, and I'm sure we'll have some callers that will, and hopefully we'll have callers that disagree. But I have, as much as I try not to really, especially not until we have a chance to have our say here on the after shows, I try not to really just bathe too much in other people's opinions. But I have seen some disappointment with Tales of the Empire, and I hate using this defense, because in a lot of cases, I don't think that it's a good defense about tampering your expectations. But with something like this, if you were really hoping to have your mind blown, or some huge window just blown open in the Star Wars galaxy, I think that you were mistaken. I think that this, just like the old Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina and the other Tales of books, they were meant, I believe, to be smaller stories, to give you more insight into various characters, little exploratory stories. And I'm not trying to, I'm not an apologist here, but I do think that there's room and utility in having this type of storytelling that gives us these backstories and things like this. So I get it if you were really hoping for something different, but I think you were kidding yourself going into this. I think you should have known that this was going to be small bites, but necessary. Good bites. They taste great. I think at least all three of these I felt tasted really good. I really am grateful for the exposition on this character. Definitely, I'll take that in with me when I do a rewatch of Ahsoka.
Some people were saying, why Morgan? This is a character I didn't need to know anything more about. But I don't know about that, because I adore seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. And anything that could provide some background to some of that stuff in these characters that just pop up out of nowhere, like Morgan Elsbeth, I think that that's very valuable storytelling and something that fits in well to the overall saga. So people are saying, why more? You brought up the Tales of the Mos Eisley novel from the 90s. And I think of that too, when people say, why Morgan? Well, I don't know. I read full chapters on Walrus Man. And
I was thinking the same thing. There's so much
Hammerhead.
love for the West End Games source books.
Yes.
And you talk about minutia.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't epic, but it filled in all these gaps that we didn't have at the time and put an official canonical stamp on them.
And anything that provides some fortification for the storytelling going on in Ahsoka, I think is really necessary, because that story needs a lot of fortification. There's a lot of gaping holes in that story, per my perspective. And I think that little taste of the background that we get of characters like Morgan Elsbeth in this Tales of the Empire anthology is really valuable stuff. So I listen, I'm like everyone else too. I'm like, hey, Lucasfilm, quit tippy-toeing around the good stuff and just bring it already. Where's our Darth Vader animated series? Give us some real good stuff. Give us an animated series that features Han, Luke, and Leia, Chewie, 3PO, and R2, and place it between the 3-year window between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Why can't you do that? Why leave that all up to the comic books? Why don't you, pony up and take the big leap, as opposed to this tiptoeing around the good stuff that they do? I think it comes from a lack of confidence from Lucasfilm as a studio and from Lucasfilm as storytellers. They get intimidated by going after the big stories. And they also feel like, well, if we tell these big stories, what are we going to do in the future? I'm like, live in the present. Think about the present. Attack this
What are you
stuff.
saving it for?
Thousands
It's
of
like the old lady that keeps the plastic on the couch. You're waiting. What are you waiting for? Enjoy the furniture now. We're all here now.
Lucasfilm, take the plastic off the sofa and let us put our butts deep into those cushions. Now, come on. All right, but all in all, I think this, to get back to what we're saying, this Morgan Elsbeth arc, I think is a very solid arc. I think it tells a story, all three of them together to form one story. And I think the Tales of the Empire anthology, this series, is more effective than the Tales of the Jedi series that preceded it. I think there's much more going on in this series, and I was quite happy with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Tanya has got a super chat here. She says, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all the teachers here in the Star Wars community. May the Force be with you always. Yes. We love our teachers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Especially
I was really happy when during the live show in Bristol, when Joe Dallas was on stage, and we mentioned that he's a guy who, for his day job, he's an educator to children about music. And that got a nice little round of applause there. People do appreciate that. And Tanya, we appreciate you and everything you do to form the minds of the future.
We sure do. The Mint Greenbird asks, you guys see the new What If Star Wars show Lego is putting out? It's interesting because they're making the toys for it. Darkside Falcon, Darth Jar Jar. I didn't think it was a show. I thought it was a game. I thought it was a video game that's coming
behind
out
on that info. So I can't really
if you're in the chat and I thought what I took from that was it was a trailer for a game, but shoot, maybe I'm mistaken. Salvi Crumb, what's that?
There's a trailer and everything.
Yeah, there's a trailer and everything. I thought it was for a game. Salvi Crumb says,
my desk.
What do we see next? Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tales of the Clones, Tales of the Puffa Pig. Possibilities are endless. I would love to see any of those. Maybe not the Puffer Pig so much, but definitely Bounty Hunters, definitely Clones. I'm open. Let's get a Cad Bane origin story or episode about him or somebody that we haven't heard about. Where's 4LOM? Let's get his story.
Yeah.
And place it in the original trilogy timeline.
Yeah, what about a Zuckuss? Where's Zuckuss?
It'd be a great
Tales of the Bounty Hunter could be very good.
Right. And then we got David says, enjoyed front, outdoor, and patio after party in Bristol. Yes, David, yes. It made some friends. And I actually like Malort a little. Did Barriss survive the stab or die? Well, we're going to talk about it, but she did. She did.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she did. I think it's pretty conclusive. We'll get into it here in a minute, but oh no. Do we have 7 minutes to bedtime? Let's do it.
It's time for Blake's Take.
Hey, Blake. Did you see how quick I was on the button this week, buddy?
Yeah, that was fast.
Yeah.
As soon as you click the button, as soon as you clicked it, then the intro played. That was a fast.
Yes, I know. I got fast fingers. All right, Blake, I know that you've got a bedtime here in the next few minutes. I've also been told you only have 2 weeks left of school. Is that right? Dang, school year's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. End of May.
I'm excited.
All right, so what did you think of Tales of the Empire?
Tales of the Empire was awesome. It filled up a bunch of different plot points that we needed between Morgan and like everyone. But one character who stood out to me throughout this entire thing is Marok. He technically ties these two stories together. He's in the first part and the second part. He's with Morgan and he's with what's her name?
Well, he's not really. You don't see him. Hold on, I'm going to have to correct you, Blake, unless you know something I don't. Yes, so Merrick. We know Merrick is part of Morgan's gang that we see in Ahsoka. Merrick is part of that. We don't see him in these episodes. But I do agree with you that from a certain point of view, Merrick kind of unites these two because you got Barriss fighting alongside Merrick as far as, being an Inquisitor. And then that's the same character that shows up later in the story of the character that we kind of are introduced to in the first 3 episodes. So yes, unless I missed it, was Merrick wasn't in those first 3 eps, right?
No, I didn't see him.
No, he wasn't in them, but I'm trying to get to where he kind of ties the two stories together. But I feel like there's more to Marok or Merrick.
Mm-hmm.
I call him Marok.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Marok too. I like how that sounds.
It's like The Rock, but it's Marok.
Yeah, Marok.
Okay.
Let's make that policy on RFR now. He's Marok from this point forward.
But he
any objections to the chat?
He just ended up being green gas.
Well, I feel like there's a reason to that.
Okay.
I feel like he feels like he's a clone, like a clone trooper. And I feel like he's definitely a lot like a clone. He acts like a clone, follows every order, doesn't speak much, just goes in, fights, does what he does, and then he's out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he was a normal clone trooper, but he was probably the first experiment Clone X. That's how he has Force abilities, because they were just trying out a bunch of things on him to try to make Clone X. And he came out with Force abilities. So then they found out he has Force abilities, then later on turned him into an Inquisitor to help the Empire and Vader. So he turned into that, and then I think Grand Admiral Thrawn, well, right now it's Admiral Thrawn.
Right.
I feel like he finds a way to get in contact with the Inquisitors, Marok and all them. And he has Marok help Morgan since they're teamed up together, him and Morgan are. So then Marok gets involved in this, and that's how he's into Ahsoka.
All right, I'll buy that.
And I feel like, wow, he's...
I'll buy that Thrawn is the connection between Marok and Morgan. I'll buy that. Yeah. I don't understand why the guy is just green gas. So when you're talking about him, I struggle when you're talking about him saying, you know, he's like a clone, he's like a this, he's like a, I'm like, he's like a cloud of poo gas.
Well, I feel like he's like that because he might have been protecting Morgan at some point. Then he died, but then the Night Sisters revived him, and that's how whenever he dies, it's just gas.
You're right. It's that witch. Yeah, that witchy green gas. David in the chat agrees. He says he must be reanimated by magic. So maybe what you're talking about, there's a history of him when he was before he was reanimated, and then you know, he was such an asset that they decided to reanimate him. I get it. I get it. We haven't talked much about the Barriss Offee arc. We're going to jump into that, but any thoughts you want to give us before we dive into old Barriss?
I feel like that those 3 episodes were pretty good. Like, they definitely added on to her story, which what needed to be completed, because they just left her. We didn't know anything about her trial. She says about how she was the one who bombed the Jedi Temple, and then that's all we get of her. And then she's gone.
She gone.
So I feel like it definitely fixed up a bunch of plot points that were needed for her.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something that we needed, that's for sure. Maybe we'll get that that Cody story that everybody wants. We see Cody behind every corner now. This is going to happen, and then Cody's going to show up. So he's one of those.
Well, that's the great thing about having closure to Barriss's story. She's not this element that's out there that can be dropped into play at any given time. Her story has been told now.
Yeah.
So it removes her from the playing field, in my opinion.
Killed.
Yeah,
So
she's
there's, like, no
dead.
story
She's
for her.
dead. She's dead. There's no coming back for Barriss Offee. All right, Blake, we got to get you off to bed, buddy. But you got any last thoughts here before we let you go?
Yeah, I want to say how. So this, I know you guys were just talking about this with the super chat, but no one else has talked about it in the chat or anything.
Yeah.
So is no one just going to talk about how we got Darth Jar Jar finally after all this time? We finally got Darth Jar Jar.
We got Darth
He's probably the
Jar
most
Jar.
anticipated Sith Lord. I've been wanting to see that for so long. I make jokes about it all the time. Anytime they have like one of the, like, I was excited for Tales of the Empire, see if we get anything about Darth Jar Jar, because that'd be hilarious. And we're getting it in Lego.
Blake, is it a video game or is it a series?
It's a TV series.
It is.
Ah,
I watched that thing and I thought it was a damn. I thought it was a game. And I even
Swank's
told
breaking
Parker
out the
about
joysticks. It's, oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, hey, Parker,
No,
there's a
all
new,
you have to do is
there's a new
watch.
Star Wars Lego game coming out. Okay, so it's a series. Okay, well, I'll like that because I don't like to have to like work for my stories. So I just turn on the TV and fire it up. All right. We can look forward to the What If series where they're rebuilding the galaxy or something like that. All right, buddy. Hey, have a great last couple of weeks of school, and we'll catch you next month with the Acolyte, okay?
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
That's
There he
great
goes.
to hear.
There goes Blake. There goes Blake.
What a good
Look
guy.
at it must have been driving this guy Sabersmith crazy. He's like, Jesus, thank you, Blake. Oh, hearing these idiots not know what they're talking about is driving me crazy. Oh, thank God for Blake. Yeah, thank God
Saber,
for Blake.
what's his name? Saber?
The Sabersmith. I love Sabersmith. He's like,
Sabersmith.
it's a series, you moron.
He finally has an ally. Someone is finally agreeing.
All
with
right.
Saber Smith.
Super chat here. Scott St. Louis. Oh, Scott, I got to tell you, I had all intentions tonight to sit here with the beautiful Return of the Jedi rocks glass that you got me and drink out of it. And I'm at dinner like an hour before the show, a half hour before the show. And I look, my son's drinking apple juice out of it. He's drinking juice out of my beautiful Return of the Jedi rocks glass that you got me so kindly gave to me in Bristol. So I'm sorry, I'll have it on a future show. But anyway,
absolute
Scott
mayhem
said,
in the Swank house.
Yes, I said, what are you doing with that? So Scott says, blue milk, not in this episode. What was in these episodes? A good writing, fascinating characters, and amazing visuals. Thanks for another great show. Yeah, I agree with all that. I wasn't mad at this at all. I see some people like they're really mad, like this thing was, terrible. It was stupid. It was dumb. It was like, how can you hate this? To me, it was like frosting on a cake. I didn't need it, but I'm glad it's there.
Yes. Again, drawing the comparison to those Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales of Jabba's Palace. I mean, those are great books and really expanded all of those characters in the background, expanded their stories so much. And we as an audience really wanted that, I think. Was it necessary? No, but it was very entertaining. In these stories, when you talk about Morgan Elsbeth especially, I think these stories are really important to the storytelling that's going on now with the live action streaming series and, specifically The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. I mean, Morgan Elsbeth has emerged as a very important character. And I think that any glimpses of her backstory should be absorbed by fandom, because I think that's really important when you consider her motivations, where she came from, and how she's tied into the whole big picture story. I think it's really important. And I was very thankful to get this additional information about her, because it makes her a stronger character. And it's a character I really like. I like the actress Diana Leonasanto a lot, and I like the way that she's been used as a Night Sister in these stories. So I fully embrace this stuff. And I've seen some of that stuff you're talking about, Swank, and I don't get it either. I don't get it either.
Yeah.
But some people are watching these shows through a particular prism, and they can't see things outside of that prism.
Or they have just such high expectations or preconceived notions or something, and it's like, wow, you're really going to set yourself up for a lot of disappointment. Like, just go in with an open mind and say, what am I going to get out of this at this point? Now, I can understand if you've been building up to a film release for years. Yeah, get those expectations up, build them up. But something like this, we should probably know by now that they're not reinventing the wheel. But as you say, Jim, very necessary and grateful for it. All right, let's get into the next couple of episodes. We know that a number of you that are waiting to talk on the phone here with us have questions and thoughts about this particular arc. I'll be honest, I have fewer notes about this than I did the Morgan Elsbeth. And I think it's because so much of this is just right there in front of your face. Not that it wasn't interesting or anything like that, but it's kind of a shorter story in a lot of ways. It's a much more compressed story than Morgan's that takes place over a span of many years. And there's kind of like 3 unique chapters in her life that are told. But with Barriss Offee, I think that much of this happens within, I don't know, a few months of her coming out of prison. Maybe not the very end. The very end, I think
you're right.
We jump forward, but
yeah, I think
it's also also a very short episode. But anyway, let's talk about Barriss Offee. Barriss in prison. And is able to look, this is kind of cool. She's able to look out her little cell and watch. If you look closely, that is the Jedi Temple on fire. She's literally watching Order 66 from her prison cell.
He's probably thinking, hey, someone stole my idea.
Right.
Who's blowing up the Jedi Temple now?
Right.
That was my gig.
Yeah, right.
That was my gig.
Someone stole my act. And we see the shock troopers there in the prison where she's being held. And all right, I'm going to need some help here because I'm trying to figure out how much time elapses from when she's seeing the Jedi Temple burn to when the fourth sister, Lynn, walks in there. Were they all just laying in wait this whole time?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think a little bit of time must have passed.
It would have to, right? It would have to.
Maybe 2 years. Because, the Inquisitors, that whole program needed to come together, in the first place.
Yeah.
And they're all former Jedi. The Grand Inquisitor is a former Jedi Temple guard. So to get them to be fully committed to the dark side and the Empire the way they are indicates to me that a bit of time has passed. Let's just say at least a year following the events of Revenge of the Sith. At least a year. And that's when this former Jedi Lynn, who is the fourth sister, she meets Barriss in prison to give her an opportunity to get out of prison and serve the Empire. With Lynn, she's the fourth sister. So, I mean, they're four sisters deep at this point. So that indicates...
I've given up trying to figure that out.
Oh, yeah. It's you need a scorecard for all that. But, the episode clearly starts with the events of Order 66 as we see the Jedi Temple burning. And then some time passes. The Empire is able to establish itself. And the Inquisitors as a level of servants that work under Darth Vader, they took time to develop. It couldn't have just happened overnight because Darth Vader was himself. He needed to get his feet on the ground and running first. And part of me, when I think about the Inquisitors, I think about the Sith and the rule of two and how that's being grossly violated by the Inquisitors. It's providing us with lots of dark side users. And how close to Sith are they actually as far as their training and their connection to the Force? They use red-bladed sabers, but they're not Sith specifically. And so I would struggle with that, but I figure at this point in time, Palpatine, yeah, that's his name. I heard it differently in my head, and then it came differently out of my mouth. But let's just go back to Palpatine.
All right.
We'll call him Sidious, if you will, the Emperor. He he probably became so arrogant, as he bathed in his powers of the dark side and unlimited power. He firmly believed he did have unlimited power. So the idea of adding additional dark side users to work as agents of the Sith, but not actually be Sith themselves, Palpatine felt good about that idea. The whole reason there was the rule of two is because multiple dark siders will eventually turn against each other and break out into war, So you can't have too many dark siders.
Yeah, I look at it like they're like with the red sabers and the black armor and clothing, that it's like it's sort of the uniform of the Sith. I think that Palpatine more than likely ensures that they can only grow so far in their understanding of the Force and their use of the Force. And then I think he keeps him on, he and Vader keep him on a pretty tight leash. I think once they would start to even give the appearance of a threat, they'd be taken out. And they probably know that too. I mean, look how quickly they take out, you got these two dudes that are potential Lamar. I think this is Lamar and
Amar.
Amar?
Amar.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And
Not
Dante.
Lamar. And Dante. Okay, so we got Amar and Dante. And Amar takes off. He's like, I'm not into this. I don't want to do this. And the next thing you know, the Inquisitor, the Grand Inquisitor, is tossing his saber kyber crystal in to show what happens. That's all that's left of him, by the way. We don't know what happened to him, but all that's left is that kyber crystal.
Right.
And so then it becomes sort of a fight to the death between Barriss and the other one that's standing, Dante. And Barriss, you see that's the other thing that is kind of cool about this, is that you see her not wanting to go there. She doesn't want to go to the dark side. She wasn't a dark sider when she was trying to send a message to the Jedi Council. She really believed that it was the Jedi Council that was inching towards the dark side. But she does, in this instance, in defense, and Yoda says that it's quicker, it's easier, you can reach out and get it in a fight and get the upper hand, and she does, and she force chokes Dante here.
Dante.
That's what I said. Dante.
Right.
Dante.
Good old Dante.
Yeah. So good old Dante, and she ends up the victor here, and so then she takes her place, sort of officially as the fourth sister. Not the fourth sister. What is her? Do we hear? What is her title?
No, they
what
don't. I don't think they give her a number.
She doesn't get a number yet.
I would assume she's the fifth sister.
The fifth sister.
The fourth sister we obviously know is Lynn.
Right.
She's the fourth sister, and she's voiced by Raya Kilstedt. And Raya played Alice Ribbons, the sole female member of the criminal gang from Home Alone 3. That's what she's known for. Oddly, Home Alone 3 is the only of the Home Alone saga that I've actually seen. I didn't see 1 or 2. I didn't see the 2 with Macaulay Culkin. I saw the one with the other kid.
No, wait a minute. Is this the same? Hold on. Is this the same actress that we see playing the character in the Kenobi series?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't think so. No, I don't believe that's the same. Although, the animation is great. It looks just like her, but I don't know who that actress is. And that's a really good question, Jason.
Mariana in the chat is saying, yes, it is.
Oh, it is.
Actress. See, this brings up Mac's point. This proves Mac's point from earlier, where you have to do the research on these voice actors because they will show up in live action and vice versa.
That's so interesting. I did not notice the credit for the Ahsoka series, or the Kenobi series. I'm sorry. I didn't notice
from Phoenix. It's true. Mac just admitted that he's never seen Home Alone 1 or 2.
No, that's true. I never did. Oh, yeah, sure enough. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the fourth sister. That was Raya Kilstedt, or whatever her name is. And she barely spoke in the Kenobi series, if at all.
Very small role.
So
but I don't think she had any lines.
No, that's devotion to accuracy right there, to have the same character from live action.
I love it.
Voice the character in animation, even though she barely had any dialogue as a live action actor. So that's great. They take her to the same planet, that water planet, Nur, where you see the Inquisitor's fortress is under construction. We later see that fortress completed in the Kenobi series, but we see it under construction in this episode. So again, pointing at the very early days of the Inquisitors in general. It appears there's only 3 Inquisitors and 1 Grand Inquisitor. You have Marak, you have the fourth sister, and then you have that unidentified bird-like Inquisitor that we see in Tales of the Jedi. That's the one who fights Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi.
She kills him.
She does.
So the Inquisitors drop like flies in this. That's why there's so many of them. And they
do.
They don't even give them names. They just give them numbers.
Right, which is so surprising that they have 3 candidates to join the Inquisitors. One of them splits, Amar,
Mm-hmm.
and then they make Dante and Barriss fight each other to the death to be able to join the Inquisitors.
Right.
I'd be like, guys, there's only 4 of you. Why don't you take the 2 of them and make
Right.
yourselves an even half dozen? What's the matter
Yeah,
with
what's
that?
with the what's with the competition being so hot and heavy here? When
However, yes.
what's the shelf life of these guys?
I did like the duel they had around the pit with the laser wall, the wall sealing them off. And if you noticed, those laser walls were closing in on them, pushing them closer to that pit.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really clever stuff. Dante is voiced by an actor named Nicholas Cantu, and he's best known as providing the voice of Gumball in the animated TV series The Amazing World of Gumball. If you
That's
watch
Dante.
that.
This guy.
Yeah, he's actually the 3rd guy to voice that character of Gumball.
Hair. Terrible.
And then his other voiceover roles include Star Wars. He played Rowan Freemaker in the Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures.
Oh, okay.
So he was a regular in that cast. And here they're bringing him back. We know how they like to bring these guys back. When his buddy Amar splits, they say, well, what about us? And Amar goes, hey, that's not my problem. And these guys are former Jedi. And as you can see,
Right, yeah.
there's no Jedi compassion left in any of
None.
these guys. The Empire
None.
sucked it out of them.
They definitely are taking the bottom of the graduating class there at the Jedi Council.
Oh, yeah, for
these
sure.
guys do not seem to be. They don't seem to be, the legends or anything like the legends. The duel, by the way, between Barriss and the Grand Inquisitor, you can hardly call it a duel because Inquisitor didn't even need to pull out his lightsaber. But I did like that he was just so super cool, calm, collected, and she never connected her saber to him at all. So she gets teamed up with Lynn, the 4th sister, and but before that, sort of official introduction as an Inquisitor is in front of this guy, Darth Vader. So we get to see a new Darth Vader model. Which is
really
pretty
good looking
cool.
one too.
Yeah, this is better than what we've seen before. I think it's a little bit more film accurate.
Give us a Darth Vader series. Call it Order 66. And it could just be about Vader and the Inquisitors hunting down Jedi. Wouldn't that be fun?
It'd be great.
And it doesn't have to have any real consequence on the overall saga story. It could all just be individual one-off episodes where you meet a Jedi at the beginning of the episode. You see how he's trying to live his life and fit in with the regular folk wherever he's hiding out. And then here come the Darth. And he's coming to town. That's what they should show. They could call the series "Here Come the Darth." And
we don't mean Jar Jar.
He shows up and duels with them, kills them. Just week after week, it could be the same show, just with different Jedi each and every week. I think people would line up for that. And look how good Vader looks in this. I was surprised no dialogue.
No, I was waiting with bated breath. Like, oh, they've got that fantastic James Earl Jones sound machine that they use.
Right.
But yeah, no.
I think every time they use it, they still have to pay old JEJ. And
well,
again, they're trying to cut costs. Maybe.
I don't know. I think that the word was that he already signed the deal and he's basically given them the rights to his voice. I don't know what those details are, but yeah, it was odd that there was no dialogue at all. And, it's Jim, sometimes it comes back to, like you said earlier, like their reluctance to put words in the mouths of these big characters. Like sometimes I feel like it's a confidence thing.
Yeah, they're tiptoeing. They're definitely tiptoeing with their little ballet slippers on. They tiptoe around, tick, 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 tick. They're tiptoe around the good stuff. It is a lack of confidence.
But cool to see Vader nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. Anytime Darth appears on the screen, everybody just freezes in their tracks. But it was great to see him at the end of this episode. Another interesting thing that happened in this episode when the Grand Inquisitor, you brought up the fact that he just had his hands behind his back and was letting Barriss swing the saber at him.
Yeah.
He says you're holding back and it makes you predictable. So he's trying to unleash the full Barriss, and he eventually does. During this moment, though, we see the rare appearance of blood in Star Wars. We rarely
She got
see
a bloody
blood
nose, right?
She had a bloody nose, and then when she force pushed the Inquisitor up against the wall, he came up and he was bleeding from the mouth. I was like, interesting.
Yeah,
Blood
you don't
from
see
Star
much.
Wars.
Yeah, right. You don't see any blood in Star Wars. There's no
And I
blood in
tried to
Star
see
Wars.
if it was red blood because it looked darker in color.
Yeah.
And I always think back to Mr. Spock on Star Trek, that green-blooded SOB. So I've always assumed that like a lot of alien species have different colored blood. So I was looking really hard, but it didn't appear to be red. Both their bleeding appeared to be rather black, dark.
I did get
just
another shot of Marek here, or Marok.
Marok, we call him
here's
now.
Inquisitor Marok, as opposed to just
Yes.
being one of Morgan's lackeys.
Yes.
Okay, so they end up on this planet. I don't have the name of the planet, but they're Inquisitors. They're hunting down Jedi. And things get really intense here because the fourth sister is a lot more dedicated to the cause and her than Barriss is. And we see this. This is the second time now we've seen this in Star Wars with sort of a raid, an Inquisitor raid on a planet. We saw this happen in the Kenobi series, one of the first scenes that we saw when they're hunting down that Jedi. But the fourth sister, she basically just makes an example out of everyone in this town and wipes them all out. And it's a brutal scene. It's hard to watch. And you see this little kid, we're introduced to him, and then by the end, he just runs over and is like hugging onto Barriss Offee's leg there, looking for any source of comfort, help, what have you, because he just saw all the adults, and who knows, maybe some of the kids, they didn't get that detailed, wiped out. Yeah. It was intense. So they're definitely there not just to hunt down Jedi, Jim, but they are there to intimidate anyone who would dare to cover for a Jedi, or provide any comfort, any aid, any shelter for a Jedi. So they're definitely sending big messages out there across the galaxy.
And Barriss learns from the kid the Jedi's hiding up in the mountains, which then Lynn realizes the old man in the market there was lying to her because he denied any knowledge. And so she cut them all down. The old man is voiced by a guy named Keith Ferguson, and he's known as being the voice of Blue from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So a lot of people, younger people in our audience might know Blue from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Lynn massacres everyone in the market. And that's at that point, that's when Barriss is starting to realize, maybe I'm not really cut out for all of this dark side stuff. It worked for me when I was hating on the Jedi. It worked for me when I was stuck in prison and needed a way out. But right now, it ain't working for me. Not after that bloodbath.
And she
was it
walks
necessary?
away.
That's what she's saying. It wasn't even necessary.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, I think she understands in principle this idea of sort of culling the Force sensitives and the Jedi as their fugitives. And she might still be subscribing to that idea that motivated her with the bombing of the temple, that the Jedi are not good for the galaxy. So she can justify that. But innocents, townspeople, just Force-sensitive children that haven't been trained in the old ways of the Jedi. So she decides to chuck her Inquisitor helmet over the side of this mountain and renounce her membership in that club.
Is that all you have to do is just throw your helmet over the
thing? I think that's the deal, right?
Well, Barriss and Lynn, they have that debate about
Yes.
using fear to bring order. And Lynn's like, now that they've seen our power, they're going to respect it. And Barriss, she's not really feeling it, especially after they encounter that Jedi. And
Right, they
and
find the
it appears
Jedi. He's hanging out in the mountains.
Yes.
They take care of that business, and then Lynn says, "Forget it. Let them die. It's not worth the trouble. They were about to surrender. It's irrelevant. The Jedi are a threat to be eradicated wherever they're found." And then Barriss says, "Well, then you have one more Jedi left to deal with."
Yes, she knows there's no moral justification for what
Right.
Lynn did by killing the villagers and then wounding this Jedi who apparently did not die. He's, they're able to survive these lightsaber wounds like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But she did kind of slice him down the back, sort of like what Kylo Ren did to Finn at the end of The Force Awakens.
Right, yeah, right.
Kind of give him a slice, as opposed to the full stab right through the spinal cord.
Right. So they'd need to be in one of those Bacta suits in order to
Yeah,
survive that.
Yeah, the bag.
I assume that Jedi is dead, right? There's no...
No, because they show him, Barriss is talking to him at the end of the episode. She's holding his head, like cradling him, saying,
Oh, right, I'm
like
not going to
almost
leave you.
right.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah, you're not alone. I won't let you die. You're not alone. So maybe he ends up with her on in the third episode when she becomes known as the healer.
Maybe maybe he joins up with her, but I mean, he is a Jedi, so the possibility of him actually, helping protect her would have been paramount, as the events of the next episode unfold. But I mean, just to stay on this episode, Lynn gets the four sisters. She gets pushed off that cliff, and we see her fall.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, and you
So
think that might
we
be
know
the
she
end of her.
survives.
Yeah, she survives
We know-
because she comes back. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
but
see her in
how
Kenobi.
did she survive? Well, do we know? I mean, this stuff might be happening after the events of Kenobi, and I firmly believe the last episode.
It would have
happens
to, right?
after the
Because
event.
she renounces essentially
Yes.
after Barriss dies.
But how did she survive? I was thinking to myself, maybe she did that lightsaber helicopter thingy that the Inquisitors can do, where they hold the blade over it, it spins around. But you see, she clearly drops her saber. She loses grip of the saber right when Barriss pushes her off the cliff. You see the saber fall alongside of her. So she couldn't do the helicopter thingy. But Force users, they can survive things like big drops, I assume.
cloning
And
Sith magic somehow.
somehow. But we do know she survives, because then we get into episode 6, The Way Out, which I believe clearly happens after the events of Kenobi.
Yes,
But probably prior to the events of Star Wars Rebels. So we're getting close to the end of the dark times between the two trilogies here, but maybe 15 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. That's where I'll place it.
What I like about this is, what we see in Kenobi is the idea of this, what we sort of equate to the Underground Railroad, the path. And what we're seeing here as these parents bring this potentially, Force sensitive child to the quote unquote healer is that they might be looking for answers to why the Empire is after their child, and likely passage along this path. So I think that Barriss is a part of that, is a part of ways to smuggle Force sensitives and their families off to safety so they can escape the Empire. So I think that's cool, because then in the Kenobi series, we see that expounded on, where at one point he's like, who's the Jedi that he gets all excited because he sees? Oh, Master Voss was here. Master Voss, he was here.
He's so fond of graffiti. It says Master Voss was here, right on the wall.
Right, it has his phone number and everything.
You know?
So,
Quinlan Voss was always something of a dude, you know.
Yeah, man.
Picking up the spray can to tags a wall somewhere. You know?
All right, so the fourth sister shows up, and she's finally found and is reunited with her old, I guess, colleague on the Inquisitors, and they have this fight, and this fight is very reminiscent of what we see happen between earlier in the second episode between Barriss and the Grand Inquisitor. But in this case, it's Barriss who's barely moving and barely putting up a fight as Lynn is attacking her. So very interesting the way they flip the roles there. And
I thought they did. And even the dialogue kind of gives a call back to the Inquisitor and Barriss. When you have Lynn attacking an unarmed Barriss, she says, your anger makes you predictable.
Right.
Like the Grand Inquisitor said, you're holding back. It makes you predictable. And in this case, Lynn is throwing everything into it, fueled by anger. And Barriss says that makes her predictable. So, yeah, things have come full circle as far as that goes.
Super chat from Aiden. He says, can we just show some great appreciation for the animation on Darth Vader? Yes, we did. Great new model for Vader. Also, who is the old friend that Barriss mentions? Yeah, when she says that she's going to connect the parents and that child with an old friend, I think it's clearly Ahsoka.
Well, yes, I didn't even... I had no idea. I wasn't even thinking Ahsoka. Barriss wants the family to use her ship to flee the planet, and the coordinates are already baked into the Navicomputer, and that will take them to an ally of hers. And she specifically says she will know what to do with you, you know? And
right.
Yeah.
Thinking it's Ahsoka.
See, I thought it would have something to do with that underground railroad for Jedi survivors. We've had
Couldn't
no
Ahsoka
indication.
be a part of that?
I don't know. I mean, because Ahsoka was part of the rebellion as the Fulcrum.
Right.
And she probably would have been serving in that capacity by the time this story is being told. So either the family is being sent to the rebellion or they're being sent to that Jedi underground railroad. And Ahsoka could very well be the conductor.
Pine Mountain Ministry says in the final episode, the couple says the traveler sent them to see the healer. I assume the Jedi survived, and that's who they were calling the Jedi from the second episode, perhaps surviving and being the one that sent them to the healer because Barriss stays with that Jedi and, until they're, I guess, okay or whatever. Yeah, that's cool. That'd be a cool little connection. I like that.
Yeah, the father and the mother, the voice actors behind those two characters both have Star Wars cred. The father is played by an actor named Keston John. He's been seen in Avatar, The Way of Water, and The Good Place. But he's also known as providing a voice in the Young Jedi Chronicles as Master Carver Drow. So if you have little kids, preschoolers in your house, and you guys are watching Young Jedi Chronicles, then you might be familiar with Master Carver Drow. And that was voiced by Keston John, who also voiced the father in this episode. The mother was voiced by voice actor Susie McGrath. And she played a regular character on Star Wars Resistance, Zam Revora.
The second Zam that we know of in Star Wars.
Right.
Not to be confused with Zam Wessel.
No, yeah. Zam's a common name. It's like Mary in Star Wars.
Okay. So we've got a lot of calls here waiting. But let's just sort of wrap up here what we've got, where the fourth sister, Lynn, she ends up sort of being somewhat tortured and forced to face her sins in a way in this sort of no way out mountain in this episode, ironically called The Way Out. It's the way out from what? The dark side, the dark path, at least in the case of Lynn. So she is
Tam.
shown...
Her name was Tam, not Zam.
Oh, Tam.
Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. I have to get in front of this before the emails and social media start smacking me upside the head. Tam, not Zam. Continue.
All right. So as she's sort of wrestling with her demons in this, she ends up impaling Barriss Offee. And you might say to yourself, well, a saber to the gut, a saber to the torso doesn't matter in Star Wars. I say you're wrong, because what we see is the breath of Barriss Offee in this cold climate. We see the breath as she's exhaling and she's talking, and then no breath. So she's dead. She's gone. The breath is the key. The breath is the key, because you see the mist, the steam, the visible breath. So I think she did.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's some actual visual evidence that may indicate we've seen the death of Barriss Offee.
I think we have, but we haven't seen the death of Lynn, the fourth sister, who could go on. I think this is her redemption arc here. And how does Barriss bring about her redemption? Through forgiveness. She says, I forgive you. I don't want your forgiveness. I want you to show me the way out. You know the way out. You just have to accept it, Lynn. Stop calling me that, but that is who you are. There is no way out. And I believe
by her leaving the lightsaber behind,
yes,
that's our visual cue that Lynn has fully embraced the idea of turning her back on the dark side once and for all. Yeah. So now, Barriss may be a playing piece that's been removed from the board, but now Lynn is out there.
Yep.
And she's got a chip on her shoulder too.
She does.
So she's definitely somebody you want on your side, Lynn. You definitely want her on your side.
All about Lynn. All about Lynn. Chris in the super chat says, watching and listening in the car, the only pod and after show that matters, RFR number 1. Oh, I got to agree, Chris. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, that's very kind. And then N64 Rescue. I love Jason, Jimmy, and RFR. We love you too, N64. Thank you so much. Yes. That's really sweet. So let's get to the phones. Let's talk. Well, everybody wants to talk about Barriss, including this guy, Dave from Boston. Met Dave in Bristol. It was very nice. Met Dave and his mother. Dave, I hope your audio... Shut, buddy. I hope your audio is... let's listen.
I'm on my home phone.
You're on your home phone. Dave likes to call us from the car with the top down and all the windows open.
With him in the trunk.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I get it.
Hey, Dave, it's good to hear from you, buddy. What do you got? What do you got for us tonight?
The funny thing out of that is how many people knew me there for being your cousin from Boston. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well,
First of all,
it was like a homecoming. I just want to say it was like a homecoming in Bristol. Having done all of these after shows for the Bad Batch leading into Bristol, it just made it that much more special. And thanks to everybody who came out. It was a lot of fun. You'll be hearing more about Bristol on the RFR podcast next week. But great hearing, meeting everybody. So crazy. Because I hear your voice, Dave. I hear your voice, and now I can picture
all the Davids.
Mm-hmm.
All the Davids I met in line, and Scott from St. Louis, who lives in the New England area.
Scott is not from St. Louis. I have to correct this. Because I learned the hard way.
He had been.
He's not from St. Louis. His last name is St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We have a lot of
Somerville.
We have a lot of listeners who identify themselves as being from a certain place. I remember when I first met Robbo from Chicago, he said to me, well, I would have just been Robbo. but everybody seems to be from someplace. You got the Eric from Phoenix, Dave from Boston, Scott from St. Louis. Oh, by the way, I got to say, Scott St. Louis, not only did he join us for the after party, he brought his blender. He brought his blender and he created this amazing spiked blue milk drink. Dave, I'll tell you right now, David, you'll be very interested to hear this. Scott gave me the recipe.
You have the recipe?
I have the recipe. I'm going to be posting it on the RFR website and on Patreon.
Oh, excellent.
So
it was very good.
I'll do that after the show. Yeah.
All right, Dave. Dave from Boston. You have good audio quality. Go, man. Let's talk about Tales of the Empire.
Thank you for being. I want to shout out the staff there. They were great, and all the vendors, and everyone was so nice to my mom. So thank you all.
You're very welcome.
I want to get into the Barriss arc.
Okay.
Well, as I like to say, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a college professor, and I've always been fascinated by Barriss's character. What made her go to the dark side? And I was thinking about this actually driving in the car today, and could it possibly have happened from the Geonosis, the battle on Geonosis, when Barriss and Ahsoka were in the tank factory and all that happened, and Anakin was so worried about Barriss, and Luminary Undula was like very like whatever, the Force will have its way.
Oh yeah.
And being a college professor, it's very hard. Like, you want to be, when you start out, you want to be friendly with your students, and then as you go on earlier, you have to learn how to be a disciplinarian. Not but it's like you got to get your work done.
Right. And Anakin had that issue with attachments, right?
To the dark side. Yes.
Yeah, but Luminara did not. Luminara was like, the Force will work it all out. Yeah. Well, that would piss me off. That would upset me as a Padawan if my teacher, if my master didn't. Not that they didn't care, but if they were somewhat just sort of tossing my fate up to the will of the Force, that would be
laissez-faire.
Disheartening. Yeah, exactly. Laissez-faire.
That was season 2 of the Clone Wars. And I recall on the round table, we discussed that to a great extent about the fact that she seemed to lack compassion or a sense of urgency or a desire to save these, it was Barriss and Ahsoka. They were trapped under rubble, and considered,
that where the siege started.
Yeah, that very well could be. That's a good place to start, because as far as I can recall, there's not like a real moment where you see Barriss just go. You see the light bulb go on over her head, and she says, "Oh, the Jedi are agents of the dark side. This is terrible." She came up with that on her own, and then took action by bombing the Jedi Temple and setting up Ahsoka to take the fall.
Yeah.
But what was that moment? I think you might be onto something, David from Boston.
One more thing, funny thing. The whole reason we went to Bristol is I took my mom to the Neil Diamond show.
Right.
And before the show started, there was this girl behind me. She's talking, I went to a midnight show of Phantom Menace on Friday night, and this guy blew me off. And she's like, "If you only knew how much Neil Diamond meant to me." And I said, "Give him a couple of weeks. If not, doesn't matter. Just let it go."
So she went from seeing Phantom Menace and some dude blew her off
on
to going
Friday
to see
night at a midnight show, and
Wow.
she's sitting behind me at the Neil Diamond show.
That's
It's
crazy.
just so bizarre.
Dave's talking about the A Beautiful Noise, the Neil Diamond musical on Broadway. He took his mom to it, and what are the odds that you end up sitting in front of somebody who was at the midnight showing of Phantom Menace? That's awesome. Well, David, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And it was so good. Please come to New England again in the future.
Oh, I gotta go.
All they have to do is call.
I gotta do it. I took a little road trip from Bristol to Albany, New York. So from Bristol CT to Albany, New York with our buddy Joel Kramer, and the topography and just the New England, it was just so different from the Midwest. It was beautiful. I mean, for miles we were driving down this highway, and to the right of us was this gorgeous. It looked like one of those, bodies of water that you see people fly fishing in with the rapids and it's just absolutely beautiful. Something that we don't see a lot here in the Midwest. So would love to get out to the Northeast again. I've never been there. Until Bristol. Let's talk to Mariana from Florida. Mariana has some things to say about Darth Vader's appearance in this. Hello, Mariana.
Hey, Chut. Hi, Jimmy and Jason. How you guys doing? It's been a while.
Great.
Hi, Mariana.
It's been a while. Great to hear from you. So let's talk about Barriss and Vader.
Yes. Let's talk about that. But first, before I get into that, I just want to say, Jimmy and Jason, you guys are just the absolute best. I love listening to you guys and your analysis, and you guys breaking down Tales of the Empire has really, lifted a lot of bad feelings off of me, because seeing some of the reactions the last few days has been an absolute bummer. I swear, I've seen a couple of these reactions online, going off on this show and writing as if Dave committed an act of heresy, and people turning on Dave Filoni.
What are they so mad about? What are they so mad about?
What is setting people off? I mean, I've been in this Star Wars business for 40-something years, and I think I can understand and break down and respect a good Star Wars story when I hear it. And I don't think this one really violated too many of my own personal rules for quality storytelling. And I always put the story first. Just give us an example of some of the things that are ruffling feathers out there.
Okay, so and before I get into that, I just want to say you guys are a massive inspiration to me. You guys are one of the many individuals of why I actually started my own podcast. So I just want to say thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So getting into what you guys were mentioning about the ruffling of feathers, and I wanted to bring up the whole conversation regarding Barriss and Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I think because when they saw people saw Vader in the trailer, and they thought oh my gosh, Vader's back. Barriss is here. This is one of the people that caused Ahsoka to leave the Jedi, therefore contributing to Anakin's downfall and completely turning against the Jedi Council and him growing his doubts in the Jedi Order itself. And because it's been mentioned by Hayden Christensen, who believes that both Anakin and Vader are the same person.
Yeah.
People thought that Vader saw Barriss and he was just going to kill her because this was the person that contributed to his downfall. And
they don't. You know what? Wait.
Yeah,
those people don't understand the Vader character, and I'm not talking about Hayden here. They're the same person physically, but the only way that Vader can survive is to completely and entirely divest himself of any of Anakin's angst or anything like that. He won. He's part of the winning team. He strides in there. He strolls in there, and he looks down and he sees Barriss. Barriss is barely a footnote, a footnote in his life, in his career. And he's certainly not going to tip his hand and say, oh, yeah, it's me, Anakin Skywalker, and I'm going to use my Vader persona as a way to exact revenge on this. He can never show any, outwardly any regret, certainly not any revenge for the situation he's in, because as we find out in Kenobi, no one killed Anakin Skywalker other than Darth Vader.
Right. And the only way he can survive and continue living because he has guilt for killing Padme. And so he's completely He's
Yeah.
completely committed his soul and his life to this Darth Vader persona, which he gets so into. He considers Anakin Skywalker to be dead. So he doesn't dwell on the things that used to bother Anakin in his old life. He considers all of that stuff to be dead and gone, and he's been reborn as Darth Vader. And like I said, it's a defense mechanism because he killed the love of his life, Padme, and he personally can't live with that. So he needs to become someone else. He can't continue as Anakin Skywalker. When Vader says that name means nothing to me, that's 100% truth in the moment he's in. Luke sees cracks in the armor, though. No one else could. And that's what makes Luke the ultimate hero of Star Wars. But Vader was fully committed to life as Vader and to forget Anakin Skywalker. All of that stuff to Darth Vader never even existed. So he's not going to dwell on that. He's not going to seek revenge for anything that happened in his prior life. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you guys, because he, like you said, he wants to completely forget about his past life and his now quest for power of the whole galaxy. So I really did not agree with a lot of those analysis, and I'm glad that you guys really broke it down. I really appreciate you guys breaking down a lot of the things that I initially, thought didn't make sense, but you guys kind of, articulated it better than, unfortunately, a lot of people that I've seen online, and some of that kind of spilled into the RFR Facebook group, but I won't get into that. But, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I think that this is a I think a great forum for analyzing this type of stuff, and the written quick little pithy comments on social media. It's not. I don't think it's the best way to analyze this stuff and look at it. It's everyone's trying to be clever and as few characters as possible and as few words, and sometimes in an attempt to be and I have to sometimes warn myself of that. I want a zinger here, and it's like, what am I trying to zing this person for? I'm not going to zing this person. This is their thought, this is their opinion, and we all got them. So, but let's hear about what you think about Tales of the Empire. Forget about what others have said. What are your thoughts? What did you call up here to talk about?
I thought it was very interesting, to see how Morgan Elsbeth rose to power, to see why she pledged her loyalty to Thrawn, and to see why she became who she was when we first meet her in Mandalorian season 2, episode 5. And I'm going to tell you, I have a very controversial opinion. I originally did not like what they did with Barriss in the Clone Wars season 5, because it was just so heartbreaking to see that someone who we all thought was a friend to Ahsoka, betray the Jedi and frame her for that massacre she committed on the Jedi, therefore leading Ahsoka to walk away and contribute to Anakin's downfall.
Yeah.
That really took a massive toll on me when I first saw that episode. And then fast forward a few months later, Clone Wars gets canceled. I was actually going through a really bad time in high school, so that was just something I really have a really bad memory about. But getting to see Barriss again many years later and to see what happened with her felt like a little bit of closure. And I thought it was also really cool to see how they brought in a little bit of the legends, tidbits here and there, from the witches of the Mountain Clan to Barriss being a healer. I thought that was very interesting, and I look forward to see if there is a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi or a season 2 of Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, I think that we can just call this the Tales of series. I look at this like it is season 2, but they want to sort of carve out, I guess, its own identities. But you're right. I mean, like Mac was saying earlier that he fully expects that we're going to see a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi. There might be a season 2 of Tales of the Empire as well. So who knows? But Mariana, thanks. You're always a great friend, great supporter. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's jump over to Jeremy. Jeremy calling from Texas, also a Patreon VIP. Jeremy from Texas.
Guys, how are you doing? I just had to come with some optimism and some energy, man. I loved it. I absolutely loved even the Tales of the Empire made me love Tales of the Jedi even more. But one thing I thought was cool, especially in the Barriss arc, is I like how her character kind of reminded me a little bit of Emery and even of Morgan Elsbeth, where they're the one character in the show or the arc that has to do that descent into darkness, right? And then come back up and sort of like go through that pathway through the nuanced seduction of the Empire into the to the lighter stuff. So I saw a connection between the three of them, and also that's kind of what it's like to be a Star Wars fan, in my opinion. Because how much of the Empire do we all love? You love the Empire, and then someone take it too far. You know what I mean? And they're like, okay, But we have our love for the Empire too.
Wait. Who as a Star Wars fan? Hold on, I gotta ask you, Jeremy. As a Star Wars fan, are you talking about the literal Empire, or are you talking about the Empire as in Disney, Lucasfilm? What the analogy that you're drawing?
Oh, that's funny. That's cool. Yeah, I'm talking about the in the story.
In the story.
Yeah, that's what's the difference? But that's pretty cool. But and I also think in a weird way, I have this feeling that the Tales of series is kind of a sneaky way of, maybe it's a part of the stuff that's great about Filoni, of bringing in new viewers and teaching them how to be a fan. Just imagine you're of the age where this is your first thing that you see these tales of. How much after every 12-minute episode would you be like, I have to know more about all of this? I would go crazy. As a kid.
I hope that's true. I hope that's true, Jeremy. I will tell you.
It's gotta be.
I hope so, but I will tell you that I do worry that they're not necessarily focusing perhaps as much as they should on some standalone content. I don't mean content that doesn't relate or tie into other. I mean stuff that if it was just by itself. I'll push back here a little bit and say that I'm not quite sure that Tales of the Empire is something that really stands on its own and would be a good gateway for new fans or younger fans. I think that it definitely has its utility for those of us that have been hanging with Star Wars, at least since the Clone Wars. In the case of Barriss,
right? It fills in some blanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
You have to see the whole. I almost swore. You have to see the whole playing field to be able to fill in the blanks, and without that.
Okay, but hear me out. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay,
right? I'm saying that's like, in a way, I think that we're so used to having Star Wars, and remember, we as OTOGs, we basically came into StarArs in the middle of the story. Essentially, according to Lucas's on-again, off-again vision. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We didn't know anything about those characters.
It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. And I'll tell you why.
So and
I think a lot of people at Lucasfilm like to boil it down the same way you are. But it's not the same thing. You know why?
Okay.
It's because we saw the original story through Luke's eyes. And everything that surprised Luke surprised us as an audience. We were walking lockstep with the protagonist the whole way through. That is not the case with a lot of stories that have happened afterwards. It's not the history. It's not the past. It's not the setup that matters. The thing that matters is the point of view from which the story is being told. And from the original trilogy, we saw it through the point of view of Luke Skywalker, who hadn't seen anything except for sand dunes when he was living out on the planet of Tatooine. So, yeah, there was a lot of stuff happening, but it was being presented, the story was being presented through Luke's perspective. We were seeing it through his eyes. We were learning as Luke was learning about what was happening in the galaxy. And if you don't have that perspective, then you have the Ahsoka series, essentially, where it's just a lot of, it's the characters know more than the audience constantly. And that's frustrating.
Okay, so I totally agree with you, and maybe I could have been more articulate in the beginning. I guess what I'm saying is it's not exactly like that. I'm just saying I feel like it's Filoni's way of sparking a curiosity, maybe potentially among newer, younger viewers to dive into everything else. And I think that the vision we see it through, like you're saying with Luke, I'm just saying in these 12-minute snippets on a very small scale, we're experiencing a lot like Emery and Morgan and Barriss, just in that journey of, going through the Empire, but not fully realizing it. So I do agree with everything you're saying.
Definitely see. Yeah. No, thanks, Jeremy. I definitely see your point when it comes to Barriss. With Morgan, because Barriss, I think, is a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know if relatable is the right word, but if I'm thinking of a younger viewer that's not really steeped in Star Wars lore. But they might connect with Barriss a little bit, and then their interest peaked. With Morgan Elsbeth, I enjoyed it because I loved, I like the character, appreciate the character in Ahsoka and elsewhere where she's shown up. But yeah, I don't think it's really setting the imaginations of some of these kids on fire. In that case, Barriss maybe. Rich from Fond du Lac. We know Rich. Rich, hey, welcome back to Rebel Force Radio, buddy. Missed you in Bristol.
What's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Doing all right. Couldn't make it to Bristol, huh? Rich, what you got going on?
Yeah, I had Cubs tickets with Mocked and Suds for the 4th already.
How many?
So
wait a minute. Hold on a second, Rich. How many Cubs games are there in a year? Home games.
Well, it was Cubs and Brewers.
All right. Hey,
and
Rich,
so,
I'm going to ask you again. How many Cubs games are
digging
there?
a hole deeper and deeper,
versus how many Rebel Force Radio events from Bristol? All right. Well, we'll skip that. All right. Well, tell us about Tales of the Empire.
And why is it always mocked?
Yeah, well, I wish I could have made it, guys. I missed you guys, but
well, we missed you too, and it was your birthday. We even like all sent you birthday wishes there on the. Who was it that taped that for you?
Yeah, it was Kevin Lyle.
Lyle taped that for you. Oh, well, that's all right. I hope you had a good time at that Cubs game.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you gotta come out for the Blues Brothers thing.
I'm telling you, the next time. No, I got to come out. I want to come out for the Kane County Toy Show. That's the thing I really want to come out for. Badly.
Oh, that would be a great time. I would, if you make it out, I'll definitely make it out for that.
All right.
I'll definitely make it to Chicago for that.
Let's talk about Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, Tales of the Empire. I have a few things to say, but I think that one of the reasons why we are so focused on Night Sisters right now with Ahsoka and this and stuff, I think it might be setting the stage for some stuff in Acolyte. Everybody's saying it's the Sith Lord and stuff for that, but yeah, I mean,
now, what would you think could have been
a lot of the
a setup for Acolyte, Rich? Give me an example of something that may have inspired you to make that comment.
Well, I've been thinking it actually ever since that one comment that everybody had a hissy fit over about, like that it was going to be a, Star Wars has been a patriarchal thing, and we're finally going to see more matriarchal society there. And everybody was having a fit about that. And I'm like, dude, we've already seen that before. That's Night Sisters. So
right.
That's what kind of got me thinking that originally. And I mean, it would be a safe way for them to dabble in dark side stuff without like messing with Darth Plagueis or anything like that. So, and I mean, Star Wars is safe a lot of the time. They do make those safe decisions. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. But yeah, I think that would be a really cool way to go about it, though, too.
Since Dave Filoni isn't a creative behind the Acolyte, yeah, sure, he sits in an executive position at Lucasfilm, but he isn't really part of the Acolyte creative team per se. So I wonder how much Filoni stuff would translate to a series like that. We have heard Leslie Headland say that she does tap into the expanded universe a bit. And one thing that's true about the Night Sisters and the Witches of Dathomir is they emerged from the expanded universe. As I mentioned earlier in the show, they debuted in the book, the Courtship of Princess Leia. So they could be on the playing field because they're not a strictly Filoni creation.
No, but I certainly don't need the likes of Leslie Headland acting as though she's some sort of, creator of these characters, because it's
nobody said that, but there is a sandbox she's playing in, and it would be appropriate for her to use. And she has said that she will be incorporating expanded universe stuff in the Acolyte. So I think it kind of adds up.
All right, Rich, thanks very much. We're going to go, fittingly, our last caller of the night, because I got to go to the bathroom. I don't know about you people. Eric from Phoenix joining us. Hello, Eric.
After that.
What are you going to say after that? I don't know. Hey, Eric, hold on. I got to get this in. This is a super chat from Jeremy. Jeremy is he sent Jimmy $20. He says, never yell at me in dad voice again. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'm sorry. Jim, were you yelling?
Did I?
I don't. Well, you did have dad tone. You had dad tone with that.
I'm cut from the cloth of fatherhood. What are you going to do to me?
Well, you know what?
Dad for 25 years.
Jeremy, all's fair in love in Star Wars, man. That's just the way it goes.
I love Jeremy.
We're just
are you
guys
kidding me? Jeremy's one of the all-time greats.
Hanging
I
out
love that guy.
and talking the wars, So don't take any of it any of it to heart too much. All right, Eric from Phoenix, last call of the night. What do you think? Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I want to say, just a huge thank you to you two and Tyler. We had the best time last weekend. I bet we have said dozens of times since we've gotten home just how much fun we had. So just huge thank you to the two of you and everybody that turned out for that.
Tyler.
I mean, just an absolute blast.
I put Tyler up on the screen. So Tyler, Eric from Phoenix is giving you some flowers here. So
thank you, Eric.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining us on stage in Bristol to give us your first blush review of Tales of the Empire. So
that's
now
right. You were the first. Technically, Eric, how appropriate is it? You're the last caller on the after show, but you were the first one on RFR guest to lay down your thoughts about Tales. That's pretty cool.
Dig that.
Yeah, very cool, and thank you for letting me do that. Yeah, I mean, overall, the Morgan Elsbeth I thought was the better of the two because I just thought it fit better. The Barriss stuff, for her to turn good, and then the other person, Lynn, went from bad to good in a 12-minute arc. 12, 13 minutes episodes. To me, that was a little tough. I
don't think she was bad. I don't think she was bad.
I don't think she ever fully committed to the dark side. I don't think she ever fully committed. As a matter of fact, I believe that when she was showing interest in joining with the Inquisitors, I think she was looking at that as what is the new era of Jedi, because the Inquisitors are there to protect the galaxy. The Grand Inquisitor says the Jedi have turned their back on the galaxy. They tried to assassinate the Chancellor, and now we have to create a new coven of protectors for the galaxy. And I think she was looking at it as what essentially is the new era of Jedi, but just serving the Empire under
with
the
different-
Inquisitors.
With different color palette.
Yeah, she was dark side curious, but never fully committed.
So that's my thoughts overall on the. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
Here's the deal: it was fun. But Paul from Alulu, I got to spend a ton of time with him on Friday, and we were talking the
Paul's
wars.
a
I don't know
great
what
guy.
we were talking about, and he gave me a hard time. He gave me some feedback. We call it like at work. I was critical of something. I don't even know what it was, and Paul looked at me and said, "You're critical? I thought you liked everything." And I took a step back, and I'm like, well, I think I've been critical before. So I thought, in honor of Paul from Alulu, I would have a couple things to be critical of the series. So I got three things. Overall, I had a ton of fun. Enjoyed
Three
it.
beefs.
Glad they did. I got three quick things.
All right.
All right, let's hear
Number
'em.
one, for the love of all that's good and holy, can we never say that the Empire is not doing something because they don't have enough money? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Of course they have enough money. They're building a Death Star. Talk about resources like we don't have enough scientists or engineers. That I can buy. You only have so many
when you have
people
things
to
like the
devote to
Aldani
problem.
heist taking place, where you have a rebellion that is like breaking into your vaults and taking your money, then I think they tend to be a little stingy about the overall budget.
I don't know. I'm with Eric. If I never hear the word budget in Star Wars
I
again,
know. I like the Empire has unlimited resources. With unlimited
power and
power
unlimited
resources
comes unlimited resources.
Use
Yes,
the
indeed.
resources. You use the engineers and scientists. I buy that. You only have so many
Right.
people.
Okay, all right.
There
Okay.
you are limited. Use that as the reason. Okay, that's number one.
Okay.
Number two,
That's number one.
they get an A for trying to use. They get an A for trying to put some new aliens in. But come on, I mean, Bozo the Clown as one of the
Dude.
as one of the Padawans.
Dude, it was
I
terrible.
couldn't get over it.
Bozo.
As soon as I saw him, yeah, I'm like, I thought they're going to roll out the little bucket toss like they always did on the show that no kid could ever win, and that's how they determine who gets to be the. Oh God!
I
it was
thought he looked
awful.
like the undiscovered
Awful.
Marx brother myself. I didn't know if he was.
Yeah, it's terrible. Terrible. And
It was.
Have we
it
ever
was
seen
bad.
his
I'm
face?
going to go so far. I'm going to go so far. Is this Dante? Is that his name? Dante? I think he's
I don't know.
He's my Ben Quadraneros. Okay. I think
Oh,
he's so
yeah,
terrible. I think he's so terrible. His hair is so
Bozo the
dumb.
Clown.
Bozo the Clown. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
He was
Yes.
the
So,
species
go ahead,
on
you
which
start.
this cat was created from. The species was actually created as concept art for an alien species to be used in The Rise of Skywalker.
There you
But
go.
J.J. Abrams
Of
put
course.
that stuff
Of
on
course.
the cutting room floor.
Wait
He
a
did
minute.
not
What
want to
you're
have it. You
saying
can
is
actually
that this wasn't even good enough for Rise of Skywalker.
It was.
Well,
Oh my God. That really drives the point home right there. Concept art for
Yeah.
the species
Well,
was
and then
drawn
the
by an
blue-
artist named Luke Fisher.
Uh-huh.
His name's Luke, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And it was featured in the book The Art of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, where they referred to him as Wizard 71.
Wow.
So that's your backstory on that species, and here he is being
Yeah.
recycled for. We could have. Jason thought it was his mustache wrapping around his head, but as we see, he has no mustache.
The TV at that hotel in Bristol was so crappy. I thought I saw a mustache across this dude. I rewatched the episodes. I'm like, what was I talking about? There's no mustache. All right. Could have been the
This
cigars and the
sad
whiskey the night
character
before.
actually had us rewinding the actual episode. We were rewinding the episode to take a closer look at this chump. But yeah, there's just something about him that reeks of Babylon 5, let's just say.
Yeah,
It does. It really does.
and then
Or maybe Farscape. I
the
don't know.
sloth creature at. Yeah, the sloth character at the end, and then the blue New Republic representative. I mean, she wasn't terrible, but she reminded me of Star Trek, and so I'm like, I can't create
Ooh.
anything. Okay, I can't draw anything, but I'm like, couldn't they do better? I'm like, it's not great.
She was real Trekkie. You're
and then
right.
the
You're
third-
right. She was real Star Trek TNG,
Very
wasn't
Trekkie.
she? Yeah.
Yes.
I got
She's
nothing
right
on
off
that.
The Next Generation. Yeah. And then the last thing, and this is minor, and I picked this. I've never seen this before, but the last episode, you got that winter planet, right? It's hot. I don't know what it is, but it's a winter planet, and they got the baby all bundled up. It's freezing cold, and the parents don't have gloves on or a hat. I'm like, who in continuity missed that? They're on a winter planet, and the people aren't like dressed for the winter. And I know it's a minor thing, but it literally took me out of every time
you
I
can
saw
wear
them,
their
like,
gloves.
Really?
Maybe that's just Eric, you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the dad in you going, wear your gloves.
I know.
Where's your coat? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? It's cold out here. Put your gloves and your hat on.
Maybe that planet's that way all the time,
criticisms I
and the
got.
native species of that planet naturally evolved to be able to withstand extreme cold temperatures.
Those people aren't from that planet, though. But I'm with Eric.
No.
I'm going to give you a solid 2 out of 3. I'm going to pass the third one, but the first two, absolutely solid, man. Thank you so much for being there in Bristol. We love you. Thank Mrs. Eric from Phoenix as well.
Andrew.
She was there.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. We'll catch you on the next one. We should wrap this up. My God, it's been what, hours? I've never had to pee so bad in my life. Oh my gosh, so many people to thank. Where do we start? Well, let's start with Tyler. Tyler, our incredible call screener. Tyler, thanks, buddy. The switchboard was a hoppin' tonight. Wow, so much fun. Lots of calls, lots of great thoughts and comments. You were there in the hotel room with us that Saturday morn as we watched the Tales of the Empire. Anything that we missed, anything that you observed in your copious viewings of Tales of the Empire?
Well, Thrawn doesn't like to face the person he's talking to, so I think Jimmy should adopt that anytime he does a Thrawn impression. Just kind of
we have to turn
the
away.
Side.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn away from the camera. Like,
just as I have planned. I'm not looking at the camera at all, and that's exactly the way I wanted it.
The big thing that I took away, though, was that I do think that was like a cave scene in that last Barriss episode, and I think like the cave on Dagobah.
Oh, right.
Like a lot of similarities to that, except there's a lot of differences. And anytime we get a scene like this, like we got with Rey, I think it's good to go back and look at how it affects the original. And, there's just the differences are, I think you're getting the first, I don't know if this is the first time, but you get the baddie going in and going through this period of meditation, period of self-reflection and coming out changed versus Luke, who I don't know if Luke really changed, but he definitely had a way of meditating. And I think it kind of raises Barriss's status a little bit in terms of like, she's not, she's no Yoda, but she's definitely someone who has an impact
she does
on the story. And, there's a lot of darkness and lively animals in Dagobah. There's a desolate, icy cave here. So I don't know. There's just a lot of food for thought and a lot of visuals that I gotta dig into a bit more.
Yeah.
But
all good stuff, man. That's great. That's the most we heard from Tyler throughout like the entire Bad Batch after show. We were so thorough apparently on all of those. And Tyler's like, I think he left some things. He left some stuff on the floor here on this one. Well, buddy, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Tyler, definitely MVP for Bristol. So helpful, so kind, so great. And I also really like that some of the people who were coming through the meet and greet, they wanted their picture with Tyler, which I think is awesome. Awesome. So,
I appreciate that too.
Yeah, very cool. All right, buddy. Well, we'll see you in a few weeks. It won't be too long. Acolyte, we'll be here for it in the Acolyte after show. But in the meantime, we'll see you soon, okay?
See you then.
Thanks, Ty.
All right, Jimmy Mack, final thoughts, Tales of the Empire. Tales of the
Final
Empire.
Final thoughts on Tales of the Empire. Well, my final thought is that I've been talking for almost 3 hours, and I'm off. I have no final thoughts left. Muff a pig, not in this episode.
All right, well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks again to Tyler. Thanks again to everybody that called in, all the super chats. You guys are just awesome. Best Star Wars fans anywhere in the galaxy. For more Rebel Force Radio, you can check us out on our website, on social media. We will be back next week with the flagship podcast. So if you just found us through our after shows, check it out. You can subscribe to us on any of the big podcatchers, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. You can find us here at Rebel Force Radio. Even on YouTube, we release the shows, the audio at least, on all of the podcasts. You can check out more Rebel Force Radio. If one show a week or 2 shows a week isn't enough for you, you can check us out over on Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Most, if not all, of the callers tonight are Patreon supporters of us here at Rebel Force Radio. So it's a fabulous community. Great folks, great Star Wars fans. If you want more of them in your life, you can check them out there. Also, the Facebook group. Facebook, just can search for Rebel Force Radio. The official Facebook group is there, and you can just answer a few questions just to prove that you really are a listener. And then next thing you know, you're on Facebook making Mariana very upset. The Facebook group. We love you, Mariana. All right, that's going to do it for us. I got to stop before I get in trouble. It's been great. We'll see you next time here on Rebel Force Radio. For RFR, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Thanks, everybody.